And we're live.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another session of DM Story Hour. I am one of your hosts here, the Benefactor, as always, your best and greatest of friends. And with me are my two cohorts, Crusader Jackaran
How's it going?
and Lady Potato.
Howdy.
And today's topic of discussion that we want to talk about with you to help you out is evil characters. Mostly evil player characters. This is going to be a fun one. I'll let Lady Potato take it.
Yeah, so I have a soft spot for evil characters. I've lightly talked about it on the channel, but today, and we've mentioned it in the past, we really wanted to dig in and really talk about it. So I guess my first question for you, Crusader, is who is your favorite evil character in pop culture and what makes them a good evil character?
For me, it's easy. Easy choice. Darth Vader. And what makes him a great character for me in terms of evil is that he is a simultaneously, he is the boss villain, but also the villain to be. He's a villain in training, both at the same time. So when you first get introduced to him, he's a low man on the totem pole, sort of. He's like the right hand man of Tarkin. Then when you get introduced to him in Empire Strikes Back, you're given the impression he is the guy running the show, and then you find out no, he's being led around by another guy. And then in Return of the Jedi, he is completely subservient and he's trying to convince Luke join him and serve his master so they can rule the galaxy together as father and son. Uh, so he has this sort of moral fiber where he looks at himself as doing the right thing, even if that's a terrible thing. He's looking at it as the ends justify the means, and he's a sympathetic villain. And he, in his mind, he is a good guy. He's doing the good thing, and the rebels are the terrorists that are doing the bad thing. That to me is very critical in being a good villain or an evil character.
All
Uh,
right.
I'd say Benefactor. Do you want to answer that question?
Oh, of course. I just want to make sure you got everything out loud
Thank
and
you.
clearly.
Yeah, I'm good.
Now then, me, you know what? The choice that I'm going to pick is going to be Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z and onwards. And the thing that makes him a good evil character, thing what I like about him is from a D&D perspective as well, you see him transition from that evil character that is against the party to the evil character that is joining the party to take down a bigger evil character to being the evil character that has now redeemed himself and became much more anti-hero to where he's now completely moved to being on the side with the good guy, where you can consider him more now on the chaotic good alignment. And the reason why I consider him good is because of those various steps. You see his character progress. Something I think people that play D&D should follow if they want to play an evil character. Vegeta is the perfect example. One that goes and melds and becomes part of the party. And that's why I love him. His character development is great from every single thing. From when he first comes to take the Dragon Balls and kill all of the Z fighters to when he now is working alongside Krillin, Gohan, and them and Goku to stop Frieza, but it's for his own means and wants of his own desire for immortality, to when he is now fighting along the Z fight, even still for his own selfish reasons, but now he's more on trying to, gain power, but then later on during that same arc, he now realizes the one desire protecting his family and these people that is now technically his friends on this new home of his, to where he now is just completely one of them, where they acknowledge him and everything, and now he fights the good fight to protect Earth in general. And I just love that from him because it's just shows a very great dynamic season of a character. That, and it goes back to what I said in the session 4 with the character arcs, and you see their progression change from like either positive arc or they may go through a negative arc or a neutral arc, and he's just one of the perfect examples of that.
All right, well, that leaves me to answer this question, and my answer might be controversial, but my answer is Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan. And what I believe makes him a good evil character is his motives in general. You and as well as his progression. You get to see him go from a child who's helpless in this world where he doesn't really understand what's going on entirely, and you watch him gain information throughout the series and really put together the big picture of the world. And ultimately his goal is to save his friends, and he decides through everything he learns that he has to commit genocide on the rest of the world, and because that is the only way to save the Eldian people, which his friends are a part of. And I find this interesting because it puts a dichotomy of, would you really be able to put your feelings aside to save the world, or would you do what he did? And it's the progression of watching him go from someone who's relatively normal to someone who becomes the main villain.
Okay.
Okay, all right. That's we have between the three of us, we have vastly different concepts of our favorite villains. Like the different types, I would say. You know, one's an ordinary person, one's a destined person, and the other is a evil person who turns good. I think that's well, Darth Vader does that too, but I think all three of those are great examples.
So let me ask this, you guys, since we're talking about evil characters and stuff today, what's you got experience with playing evil PCs? Everybody already know that I am the one that does that. We talk about that in many different podcasts. So let's save someone that already went through their thing last. So let's talk about you two. If you guys ever played any.
Yeah, I have only had an experience of playing one truly evil PC, and that was Rebecca in your game, the Benefactor. Uh, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was quite brief, and I don't believe I had too much of a chance to lay down my evil plots, but overall a good experience. What about you, Crusader?
I play like all of the villain characters in my game. I play all of the evil characters. Um, some of the evil characters I can't mention yet because you guys might actually play games with them. So I don't want to give any spoilers. Um, but I would say, I would say, probably if you're asking me like what's my favorite villain character or evil character I've played, is that the question? Just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, or
Uh,
it's more or less just asking your overall experience of
okay,
playing evil
experience with it.
characters. Yeah.
So I love it. I love it as a DM. As a player, I've never done it before. As just like a non DM, I've never done it before. I don't perceive myself ever doing it. I things could change, but I don't see myself ever doing that. I just, as a DM, I'm great with evil characters. As a player, I don't see it working out for my play style, personally.
Fair enough. I mean, we all have our play styles and things we enjoy about playing our characters, but I guess I want to ask the Benefactor, what is the what's appealing to you most about playing evil characters?
Oh, truthfully speaking, the thing that makes playing evil cap appealing is I personally find myself more along the line of being under that evil mentality, like my thoughts, but not. And this is where we got to like really define how I see it with evil a little bit. So for me, the thing that appeals to me is like evil characters to me are those that do let me straighten myself down. Even kind of the ones that will do whatever it takes to achieve the goal that they wish to achieve, even if it comes at the cost of other people, or even at times even parts of themselves. You know what I mean? So for me, the appealing part of that is, I'm the type of person that I will achieve the goals that I want to achieve no matter what. And that's why a lot of my characters I've made that are under the evil is like that. But and this is me going a little bit off, not all top, but a little off on, a thing with Crusader Jackaran here, where we had the issue of me first playing with him in D&D, and I wanted to be my chaotic evil character Nicholas. Which again, this is a stigma in Dungeons and Dragons with evil character. He's gonna go and ruin everything. He's gonna start killing people and doing all this nonsensical stuff. And I had to tell him like that's not the true way to play evil character. I despise that, which is another thing that appeals me to that because I understand the truth behind playing the evil character. And Nicholas' whole thing was, yes, I'm chaotic evil. I am willing to do whatever it takes to revive my dead wife. You know what I mean? Now there is some boundaries that he's not willing to cross, mostly like, making a deal with a devil, which did appear in the campaign, because he knows that's not a true solution to his problem, because that may solve it when she's alive now, but when they both go in the afterlife, they're now separated. That's not no deal. But he would do something like, say, with his party, if someone's like, well, you lead these guys into this trap, which may kill them, we'll give you the things you need to do, things like that he's willing to do. And this is where I say, when it comes to evil characters, is something that the other players have to be really involved with your character. Because the one thing you want to do when you make evil characters is have it where the evil character becomes a part of the party and really attached to the party, but that also depends on those players in the party to make that attachment, which is why I say Vegeta is a really good character, because you see that transition and them like bring him more and more into them, and you see a transition from him being dastardly evil to a much more, I will do whatever it takes to win, and going along, that line, but then caring for them and not doing things as drastic or doing anything that will screw them over, which is something a lot of teams worry with evil characters, is that player screwing them over. And that's just going into a little bit of it with chaotic evil. You know what I mean? And evil character. Like, then we're not even going into like the lawful evil types that I generally more inclined play. There's so many different ways you can define quote evil. We'll go with like Tamias, who is lawful evil. He was someone who was really about law, justice, and order, but his means were very, from other people's perspective, evil. Even if it wasn't to his own, he would kill a criminal for stealing bread. He would be very harsh to those that have done wrong to innocent people. And from those who are on the much more good side of and think about people can be redeemed, he looks like a guy that is wholly evil, even if he has a semblance of good in his actions. You know what I'm saying? So evil doesn't have to be, dastardly. Evil doesn't have to be, you doing things that will cost the lives of just thousands or even just people in general. It could just be the inherent actions you do seen from another perspective is relatively evil, even if the means behind or the desire behind the ends for it is supposed to be good. And for me, that's my appeal as well to being an evil character. And again, I'm a little rambly because it's a really good question, as you guys did say you really want me involved in this topic. It also, from a DM for a DM and as a player for both of that, it lets the DM have a player that can see a little bit out of the box compared to the other players. Let's put it that way. You now have a person that's willing to do what needs to be done so that the other players can succeed. You know what I mean? Sometimes doing the good thing will not let you succeed at, say, stopping the antagonist, the bad guy, something bad is going on. Sometimes you need that touch of evil to really get something done. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that note, even having like an evil character in the party, that creates an interesting dynamic if you have a party that's, let's say, more good aligned. It creates that social dilemma and how you navigate that, which I think we'll talk about a little later. But I really enjoy playing with either I my personal style is more neutral characters, but um when I've played either good or evil characters and have had the opposite, it's really interesting to figure out how to work together.
Yeah.
Well, I would say my take on several things that you're just talking about is I always look at the psychology of the player. When someone plays an evil character, I mean, Benefactor here knows I am studying their behaviors. I'm watching them like a hawk because what I'm looking for is because the main question I ask, okay, is why are you playing an evil character? What does an evil character bring to the table that any other character doesn't bring to the table? And, Lady Potato, you kind of just answered that question in by saying it's a different perspective brought to the party. But in my opinion, okay, I don't see it that way. I see it as, I mean, it is a different perspective, sure, but I see that you get a different perspective regardless of who it is. Your alignment doesn't define who you are in terms of your perspective. It defines you in which the lens you view the world. At least that's how I perceive it. So, I don't, I look at it like, okay, you're evil. Why? That's how I look at it. Why? What's your justification? And that's something where Benefactor here with his characters, he's able to justify it. Vegeta's a great example of a character who can justify it because he's a very self-centered character. He's looking at the world from, this is about me, myself, and I. I want to be the greatest, the strongest, the most badass. So it makes sense under that circumstance. Some of the players I've spoken to who wanted to do an evil character or wanted to play an evil character, I got the resignation or the idea that they just want to be a dick to everyone. Not just other players. They wanted to be a dick to the NPCs. And it's like, not that I don't want to stop you, but I'm not going to encourage you to play that way. Because, I mean, you're going to find yourself dead real quick, because that's just the worlds that I play in.
And no, not to cut you off, I found this good
I'm done.
here. But listen, this is again when I first started playing with you and everything as one of your player characters. It felt different. When the way you responded to me saying evil felt different. I feel like that perspective that you gave had really came along after watching me play. That you're like, you know what? I'm fine with evil if they do it this way. And you started being a little more lenient in that and into where you got. Like that's how I felt. When you first did it, you was really, really just like on that hard fence. And this is why I didn't use perspective. What you said is correct. Again, this is not to knock down Lady Potato. I love Lady Potato. That's why I didn't use the word perspective. That's why I prefer to say they're willing to do something the good characters are not willing to do for the sake of succeeding at what needs to be done.
But they would still have a different perspective, a different scope. Somebody who comes to those conclusions and is, capable of doing those sort of evil tasks, they're going to have a different perspective of the world, right?
Oh, no,
That's why I use that word.
No, I get what you mean, but that's us also, going through the definition of perspective. Let's say that's why when he put that, it's on like, yeah, that's why I didn't agree because I thought the same way he did. I don't agree with that, but I do kind of understand what you're saying because you even said you agree with how I put it. But that's why I said I put it that way, particularly to be a little more specific than generalized.
That's why he put it the way that he put it, so that it was the way that he said it to be the way that he put it, instead of the other way, which is how you put it, so that it wouldn't put it the way that he meant to put it, which is the way he meant to put it.
So that you guys already know this. Like this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It is my general style.
It's why I held off. I was like, I wanted to talk about it last week, but I was like, real dick move to talk about it without. It'd be like we'd be dedicating 2 streams to talking about it. So it's like, all right, well, I mean, we might do more than one, but for now, for the first one, I want to have you here because you're the guy that, as you just said, I was really against. And it's by a miracle that I was like, just give the guy a chance. Give him a chance. He's going to fall flat on his face. He's going to realize he doesn't want to play an evil character. And he's going to change. Which, hilariously enough, I think both of us were kind of right in that circumstance. Because because you ended up saying, okay, this isn't quite the character for this game, but you still like evil characters. And you did manage to convince me to okay your second evil character. So I think we both walked away correct in that circumstance.
Yeah, and this is not what I mentioned in it, and I want to talk about that again, just to clarify with both DM and players alike. We're just like, being an evil character is something that also is very, very dependent on the group that you are playing with. You know what I mean? If you don't have a group that can really facilitate that change in the evil character where he will not be a disruption to the party or the overall game or campaign, you know what I'm saying? That I don't think it's a good thing to have that evil character in. I think you should change for the sake of everyone and for the fun of the game, because these players are not the kind that will facilitate the growth that you are looking for your character, which is, like you said, one of the things that made me change from the first one, Nicholas, who was going to do fine, but with how none of them really wanted to interact with him, get to know him. He was open to talking with them. It's supposed to be something, the thing over time, but they would, like, even at any moment of respite where we just had a chance to talk, we were sitting at a table eating, and a question was asked, and I wanted to answer it. And they're like, no, and they kept pushing me off. Where it's gonna get to the point where it's like, if the antagonist or villain of the story made the offer to me to kill him to achieve my goal, it's like there's nothing stopping me. And I don't want that, especially for if you have like a one person that's new in the game. You don't want that to be their first experience. That's just a pretty bad example. I'm always about, and as you said, I'm the evil team player. I'm always about the game is meant for all of us to have fun and enjoy, and I want new players to really understand how the game, in a sense, should be like. And having someone just end up killing them sets a bad example. That's not what I'm, about. I want everybody to play, enjoy, and want to come back and play again, and get used to the more myriad things that can happen. Once they get more experience into it, then it's like, this happens, it happens. They're more understanding, especially, they now experience, they know this is not the norm. Something went wrong during the gameplay, and this player character decided to join forces and, attempt to annihilate us. So that's how I look at and feel for evil character being a player. And from a DM, I personally feel if a player wants an evil character and they, like I said, they have a good reasonable standpoint on why they're evil, I would love to facilitate that and try to give them that kind of feel they want within limits of not being disrupted. They want to start being disruptive, then it's just like you're gonna get punished. Like, you can't be disruptive to the party and to the game itself and not have the world backlash against you.
But what if the player is stabbing the party in the back and helping your villains? What do you do then? Or what would you do? I don't know if you've ever been in that circumstance before.
Yes, actually, because two of the player characters, but technically that was their original role, so this is a little bit different. The two of them were originally part of the villain side, but the way that they were supposed to work was supposed to be more of the subtle disruption. They weren't supposed to be like completely disrupting the party, but they were supposed to watch the party, make sure they didn't learn too much, where they'll start like actually becoming an interfering problem. But it was, so they were more, but that kind of thing is a little different. What I know you're talking about, but I felt like talking about both of them in this regard. But that one's more of where the two player characters understand what their job is and is in direct, a little bit of direct work with the DM about what they should go about while still having their own autonomy. And those characters, again, are meant to still change and to betray the DM and the bad guy in the long run if the party really helps facilitate their change of heart as characters. Now, if the player character is doing this without working with DM, and it's just like just doing it to be, as you say, you're trying not to be a dick about it, then it's one of those things where it's just like you may get a reward, but don't think there won't be a repercussion. Now you have to really work on making sure the party doesn't find out, and now you're slowly going to be working for me as the DM. You may be, I'll let you keep the character, but you will slowly, if you keep this up, be working for me. And it's still going to be like how I just gave an example where you're now kind of still a little stuck under working me under the influence of, you're going to do this. You're doing it my way because I want the characters, the players, and their character still grow and have fun. But you will not be
Okay.
like a full
So, all
disruptive
right.
dictator.
So then I'm gonna complicate this just a little bit more. Okay, in this hypothetical, what happens when your good players they catch on, or they're just simply at the table as you're, this is very obviously a decision he is making. They're catching on. Okay, he's the bad guy. He's the villain here, and I'm going to metagame on this. Like they're going to metagame on it.
Oh, okay, that's a tough one. Luckily I didn't. Well, I pseudo didn't run into that problem. So
I did. I have run into this problem.
I'm pretty sure
as I explained with my New Year's story. But yeah, I'm that's what I'm curious. Like, okay, in my New Year's story, my brother was playing a overtly evil character. Everyone at the table knew. His wife knew he was evil and completely metagamed the entire game, virtually no role play at all, and was just hammering away, actively trying to disrupt him. So I'm saying, all right, put yourself into that shoes. You have a player here who's working against the party, and then you have another player here who's new, and they're just completely metagaming to undermine the evil character who's trying to undermine the entire party. What would you do in that case, Benefactor?
That is a very tough question, and it would be so because it would be so better if I had a full live experience of that. So the players kind of knew one of the player characters were evil. They didn't like hard metagame. They still played within their character and stuff. They just kind of like devised a way to beat the evil character metagame. But in that situation, it's really hard. I wish I was in that situation so I could answer as well. That is really hard. My best solution is always to just talk to that player and out of game and really like tell them like, your metagame, you're using out of game knowledge to try to screw over the fun of another player while you guys, I would try to mediate that where just like they're doing something, but you guys are doing something that they're enjoying that's not fully or really disrupting you guys. And you are going out of your way that at any moment to metagame, go out from you. You're out of kind of now knowing that he's doing these bad things to now go to him as he's doing these bad things instead of like you're in character finding out that he's done it. You know what I mean? You're not going like in character like, every time this player character disappears or he's here, something goes wrong about where he's at. You're not making a character insight. I would have to sit there and really talk to them about that. And try to meet them, let them understand like that's not the way you're going about it is not, especially if they're new, is not the correct way to go about it within a tabletop RPG setting. You can't use outside knowledge inside. And that goes for anything. It's not even just that dude, just this, but in general. That's something to really sit down with a player and talk to them. Even if it's a one shot. You like, guys, just pause the game real quick. Especially these men, knows it. Just pause the game real quick. Take them to the kitchen, aside, talk to them, and really just, set that boundary and explain that to them as best as possible without, obviously spoiling. But Lady Potato, what about you? What do you think on that? Any advice for me?
I mean, I don't necessarily have advice for you. I think that what you said was good, but I just remembered that in the context of that story, that player, the wife in this case, didn't she have an out of game motive like through the I can't remember if you guys had like certain perks.
Oh yeah,
He had a perk where she was supposed to find an evil character in the party, and you say that he was acting overtly evil. So again, going with what Benefactor said, you can't really like judge the situation without being there, because if his character was being overtly evil and your motive in character and partially out of character.
When I say overtly evil, his character himself wasn't really acting overtly evil. He was acting mysterious. But out of game, he had said, "Oh, I am playing an evil character." So that's what I mean when I say overt. Like he made it obvious to everyone at the table, his character is evil. But that's metagame knowledge.
Still, it's still important context to have in mind that she did have a motive to thwart an evil person's plan. So it wasn't just entirely just like she's doing it just to mess with him either. I just didn't want to give the impression out there that I just wanted to put that there.
Yeah.
That was
that's fair to add that context. But I'm saying, all right, get rid of that element, right? Get rid of that element.
I agree 100%.
You have a new player and their perspective is the good guys are supposed to win, right? We're a bunch of heroes or adventurers. We're supposed to slay the dragon, grab the gold, win the dungeon. It's Dungeons and Dragons, right? And so they're looking at this as like, okay, this other player is very clearly acting against the interest of our party. Very clearly. Okay. We're listening to him talk to these other villagers. He's blatantly lying and misrepresenting facts. He's leaving us to go talk to people in shady back alleys. Like, there's no reason why any of us should trust this guy. And it seems like he's one of them. Like, if someone were to state this case before you, right, as their reason why they're actively disrupting this other player, how would you handle that? You know, and say you take Benefactor's route of saying, okay, I talked to him, and then he keeps doing it. He does it again, like immediately after, or maybe he doesn't do it like 30 minutes go by, and then he starts doing it again. You know, what do you do then?
I mean, repeat metagaming is, I gotta be honest, I don't really have enough experience behind the screen to know the best ways to curb that behavior, but I would really just try and curb that behavior as best as I could. Um, with talking to them, with yeah, that would be probably my route, but I don't think that's really that effective.
You know, if they keep doing it again and again after talking to them, that's a player you remove from the group. It's like you're just not a part of this group. It's like I can't. If you metagame with this, you're gonna. What else are you gonna metagame on? You know what I mean? At that point, I already talked to you about the metagaming. If you're gonna keep this up purposely and intently, you know, I just can't have you here.
Okay, so I want to note that both of your guys' solution is not the evil player. Your solution is to target the metagamer, because he is the one who's using out of character knowledge to impact the game in a way that takes away someone else's fun.
Yeah, that to me, the metagamer is now the one being disruptive, not the evil character.
I think that's a fair assessment.
But we didn't hear from Miss Potato. We heard from both of us, but I'm curious. You know, what defines an evil character to you? You know what I mean? Because I gave my example. Crusader had given his example. So you know, I want to hear yours.
I mean, when it comes to defining an evil character, I honestly think that it comes down to what is that character's true intent. And usually it is something that is selfish in nature, whether it's power or security. Those are the two main ones when you really break it down, but it's generally selfish intent. And they don't really care what, and usually this means that they don't care whatever means it takes to get it. I know that with the nuance between individual characters that can vary, but that is my generalized gist of what defines an evil character.
Okay. Okay. You're a little more hardcore in that their general motives is always just very selfish one desire. Okay.
I mean, selfish in the sense that, like, a character who is truly evil, like, um, there is more nuance, and they may be doing it and perceived as evil, but that depends on what scope you're viewing the character as well, which can be important to note. But if we're talking about specifically player characters, I would say that it's typically lies down to their motives.
Okay. So you said that then. Let me ask you this. You know, how would you portray an evil character and have evil characteristics?
I mean, I think that kind of starts with defining what sort of characteristics are usually associated with evil characters. That would be things like lying, betrayal, corruption is a big one, whether that's from themselves or outside sources, um, brutality, or even their own versions of justice. This can really, really depend. But sorry, how to portray these, I would say, would be in ways that aren't disruptive. Would be to show these traits against your enemies or people that aren't in your party. If you're trying not to be disruptive, even hell, you might even be able to do it to your party depending on the severity, like lying, or um, if you have corrupted intents, you may or sorry, if you have been corrupted by outside forces, you may be consorting with them or their minions in some way. These are ways to show that these traits that you have, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Just a short list. It can
I,
vary between. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean, 'cause I was saying, but how I want to know about you. If you was to make an evil character, how would you personally portray it? Like, just it doesn't have to be. You can make one specifically. I just want to know, like, how would you, to give an example to people out there, portray an evil character? I want to know you personally, Lady Potato. As we are, as I say, friends, aren't we?
Yes. I mean, I would, my general approach, if I were to just make one that I would like to play, I would take more of the approach of they may be doing things that appear good on the outside, but they're doing it for their own gain. They're doing it to gain power. They're doing it um again mainly for their own good. Uh they may lie to people that like even their own party for the sake of getting ahead. They may be very brutal to their enemies that they kill. Um, those are just some things that I would do, but again, it I would have to get into very very detailed specifics on the character and which way I want to take that character to decide how I specifically put them.
Okay, I was just curious. All right.
What about you? Unless you already answered that.
Well, you want to ask me personally how I personally portray evil characters? I can give, let's I have plenty of examples of that. Let's go with one that not been talked about too heavily, even though I named him earlier. Like I said, which was Nicholas, who was my elven necromancer. His goal in life was pretty much to resurrect his dead wife. So he was a guy, for a little bit of backstory insight, he was a guy that was an elf that studied to be a doctor and everything. And because of that, he didn't really talk much to his elven people that he lived in the village with and everything. He was very more seclusive. And the person that became his wife was one of the person that really kind of got him a bit out of his shell and got him to, in essence, see life. So her death was a major impact on him. You know, he was seeing life with the vibrant colors, and he had a heart filled with love. And with that gone, he still had the love there for her, but everything else seemed kind of dull without her. He was really grieving and stricken, and I wanted to play him that way. And the reason why he was evil was because through the course of his life trying to resurrect her, he planned and done very diabolical means. One, necromancer. Now, depending on the world you're in, it might not be as bad as it sounds. In this world, it was a very bad thing to be a necromancer. General D&D lore, being a necromancer is considered an evil act of raising the dead. But this was like one of his studies to try to resurrect her. He ended up joining and leading an evil cult so he can spread out and find more information, done terrible deeds like experimenting on people, which he used his doctor skills, even though, he tried not to like kill them himself because he had that, Hippocratic oath. He was not really trying to go out and kill people. I still make sure to play him where he does good acts as a doctor and tries to help people that's injured. But when it always came down to it, he was willing to screw over the party if it was a way to help him bring back his dead wife, which did happen, where he had took a book. So how I portray him was very much of he's this kind of like very off to the side kind of guy. He's really smart, and he plays off like this good doctor, but at the end of the day, getting the party and get to play known too much. I get to play him as long as I would like to. In the day, he's gonna be someone that was willing to backstab them if it was to bring this life, the love of his life and light into him. I wanted to portray that much more in his character than I really got to. But I got to play the intelligent doctor side and get to play too much of the evil side. But it was one of the things I wanted to portray was that kind of like dynamic of him where you will see him like raise the dead and do these things with, take things from the party that he thinks is more useful to him. I wanted to really, show that up. Didn't get to happen. It's so many evil characters I could talk about, but let's move on. We're gonna hit another topic with me to bring more examples into. This is just too good. It's too good.
Well, a key thing I'm noticing here that we keep going around, we're tap dancing around it, is the personalities, the personality of the characters. That's a key thing for an evil character. I was just telling my friend yesterday. I blew a bunch of my friends away, blew their mind when I said this. We're watching the HBO Spawn series. If you guys haven't seen it, it's a great series.
It's a great series. Yeah, I love it.
And I was telling them my favorite character, villain, is Billy Kincaid. And everyone was like, what? This guy is a child killer.
Yup.
All right. Terrible human being. Absolutely awful. And I was telling them the reason why I love this character is because he is a villain you can hate unapologetically. Every single thing about him, you have reason to hate. And you don't feel bad about any of it. You're like, I hate this guy all the way to the core. It's fantastic. I love to hate this guy. And it's like, what about him lets you have that feeling? And it's the way that the character is portrayed, okay? His motivations, the way he conducts himself, the way he acts, all of the actions that he does, everything he does lets you know and indicates to you that this is a terrible or a bad person, okay? Now, take that, okay? That makes a good villain. That makes a good villain to contrast to your hero who's kind of villainous, but he doesn't see himself as villainous and tries to make himself better, which is where I'm going to go with when I was talking earlier about lenses. All right. Because a lot of people take evil to mean selfish. And I don't see evil as selfish. I used to see evil as just synonymous with selfish. Not anymore. I don't see it that way. I see evil as more so a natural intent or a natural inclination towards doing something harmful, not because of some form of pleasure out of it. It's just that's naturally how your character thinks the solution to the problem should be answered. Okay, so if a tiger is hungry, it doesn't think to beg. It derives on, I must hunt and kill. Okay, many people would put a tiger under the category, under that circumstance, they would put the tiger under neutral evil. Okay, because it doesn't really know right or wrong. It just does its instinct. It follows its id. Okay, but you could just talk to people about their opinion of the Punisher. Okay, or talk to people about their opinion of the Joker from Batman. Okay, one of the questions that you'll see people talk about in comics is, should Batman kill the Joker? All right. In my opinion, an evil leaning person or an ignorant person, but I'm going with the idea of evil in this case, okay? An evil leaning person would say, yes, he has a problem. He's causing all this destruction. He causes mass murder. The logical conclusion is kill him. Where the neutral person would say, not really, unless he got in my way. Okay, if he got into my way, then it would be my problem to deal with, and I would deal with that however I feel necessary. If he's threatening my life, then sure. If he's just mildly disrupting me, then I'll just, piss off. And then the good person says, no, depending on the circumstance, no, I won't kill him unless he's hurting or threatening someone else, or if he's threatening a greater good, or if he's just threatening me, I might wait for him to hurt me before I defend myself. Okay, so there's just different shades. That's how I see, when I contrast evil, I look at evil in the way of it's a part of their problem-solving methodology. It's how do they approach a circumstance, and then they say, okay, well, this person would likely do this terrible thing to me, so I'm going to do it to them first.
Okay, so I wanna piggyback off that unless Lady Potato wanna say something. That this question I'm gonna actually shove to her if she's unless she you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay. So this comes to me. What this goes 10 years for both of y'all. I'm gonna start with Lady Potato. What's the difference, for you between an evil character and let's say a chaotic good character? What that like line draw for you between them as a difference?
I think the main line comes to morality. Like chaotic good characters, sure, they're going to go against laws and they're going to go against authorities to accomplish their goals, but they're not going to cross moral boundaries like killing people. Whereas an evil character may do that to accomplish their goals. They're going to be a more well, in typically they don't really care about the consequences as much as a chaotic good character either.
That's how you see it. Okay, interesting. Quite interesting, actually. All right. How about you? So
I
say
was gonna
okay.
say I don't agree with that. Um, I look at it as both of them quantify. Well, I'm saying when I say both, I'm referring to a lawful evil and a chaotic good. They both quantify actions based on their perception of a moral compass, but then I believe the major difference in both scenarios is they look at it from an objective based, or if they're an intellectual character, they will look at it from an objective base, and they will quantify someone's good versus their evil, or their contribution to society versus their contribution to their cause or whatever their motivations are. So it's a little bit, I don't want to get too technical into the nuts and bolts, but there is a distinct difference where the good character is drawing the line. Okay, I would put the Punisher in the chaotic good category because he's out here killing mobsters, he's out here killing assassins, he's killing bad people. And he's killing bad people that the law is saying, no, we can't do anything. They should be put in prison, whatever have you. And he's saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Some victim is out there awake at night because this person is on the streets. I'm going to get rid of that person, and that victim can sleep sounder because I did what had to be done. The evil character can take that stance, but the evil character will typically take the stance of, all right, this person is a problem, and I can either eliminate that problem or use that problem to help me in some way gain what I'm trying to do, or I could use that problem to help someone else to do whatever it is that they're trying to do. So I don't have to necessarily kill the person. If I kill the person, then I'm basically cutting off a branch of a tree. When I can actually look at this and say, where's the opportunity? Or I can look at this and say, how can this be a good thing for my view of society? And if you're Adolf Hitler, your solution could be, okay, kill this guy, and that perpetuates my power. That makes me look like I'm strong. I'm in a position of power and strength. Okay. If you're dark side, you could look at that as, well, if I kill them, if I kill this mass murderer who's running around killing people, if I kill them, it's going to make me look weak because I am up on my pedestal, and now I have to go down here into the mud and kill this insect, and it makes me look weak because there's no reason for me to do that. So it's more beneficial if I just let them go. I let them do their thing in society, or let some other do-gooder respond to that action. And then I can judge on that do-gooder. I can react to that do-gooder. So I look at it, there's a lot more nuance, and it's very complicated in the differentiation between, say, lawful evil and chaotic good. And I think chaotic evil is way different than both. I think chaotic is a lot more selfish. It's a lot more impulsive.
Okay. I like
Sorry if
that.
that's a very convoluted answer, but
No,
I don't think there is a simple answer to that though.
No, I don't think there is either.
there's not. That's why I wanted to hear both of your thoughts, and I'm not gonna really say, you're right or wrong. I was just very curious. It's all like, hey, it's just like, okay, I see where you're saying with that, and then with Crusader Jackaran here, I'm like, okay, that's your thing there. You kind of went down a route that I kind of figured you would. You would compare lawful evil and chaotic good, which a lot of people do generally. Seeing as they're kind of like the yin and yang in essence of each other, where sometimes they can seem interchangeable depending on the character.
They're the fine line to balance. They're the fine line, because it's like that's a part of why good characters have a problem with chaotic good characters, is because your Rorschachs, your Batmans, your Daredevils, your Punishers, and Luke Skywalkers, they are teetering on becoming the villain. They're walking that very fine razor edge, and they're trying not to get cut on both sides. Spawn, we were just talking about Spawn. Spawn is that. Spawn is a creature of hell who's walking the fine line of trying not to do evil and also trying not to, and can't help his impulse to do evil. So he's like holding himself back from being good, but he's trying to be good. His natural inclination is evil. His natural inclination is that. But he wants to be good. He's making a conscious effort to be good. John Constantine's another one. Okay, his inclination, his solutions are, how can I do this with causing as little pain as possible, but knowing I have to cause pain? That's his approach to everything. It's, how can I avoid causing pain? How can I solve this solution so that no more people have to die? If I have to kill 5 people to stop everyone from dying from this, I'm going to do that. That's the John Constantine way.
Yeah. Okay.
And Constantine, I would put him as chaotic good, even though he operates within the quote unquote lawful means, or he has to operate and dabble in the lawful means afforded to him by his cosmic system that he lives in.
Yep, and that's lunch bell, folks.
Nice, hit my mug.
But I like you said that, and I love the Spawn example. Though for me, I view Spawn more on the which you did kind of say, more on the lawful evil who is trying to go through that redemption arc of being more on the good side and everything. I've always viewed him, and he's also someone I also had looked up to, both comic books and from the HBO series, as another person to follow an example behind when you make a D&D character. Because again, he's someone who he has a moral code, and it's something that is another thing you should make when you make an evil character. This doesn't even have to be lawful evil. Even if you make a chaotic evil character, I still feel like you should have a personal moral code to yourself.
Yeah. If you want a great example, people love putting Catwoman. They love putting Catwoman in chaotic neutral. If you go back to old school Catwoman, classic Catwoman, she is chaotic evil. All right. She is completely selfish. Everything she does is for herself. She can't help her impulse to steal. It's just something she wants to do. She has to do it. So, like, to me, like, her rule and conduct is, I see shiny object. I need it. I need to take it. However I can get it, I need to take it. And it just happens the more expeditious way for her to do that is to sneak stealthily and manipulate people to snatch the diamonds or snatch the necklace. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory and try and annihilate the whole party because of my evil tendencies. It can be as simple as, I want something, so I'm going to fib, lie, and do whatever I can because I want to do that thing.
Yeah, no, and 2 things on that. Sorry, because I don't want us to go off because this is something I do want to go over and ask. So I'm gonna first ask. I'm gonna say it out, but I have a story on base of what you said. So I'm thinking I'll go with the story first. So one, the thing that you just said about she's gonna go out her way to lie, cheat, manipulate to get things she wants, which remind me of the thing you had laughed about and like that Tamaya did, where, and this again, play an evil character had used one of the good characters in the campaign to get something he wanted, by, in essence, manipulating another character into assisting in that goal, which I had somebody that used a player character named Dawn to assist me to breaking this barrier so I can find a particular person that was behind it. And the way I went about it, because and this is too, you need to be able to gain your party's trust. And the only reason why it worked is not so much of a hard reason, because I gained her trust over the period of time of us being together, where she trusts me, I trust her, in a way. Let's say it in a way. And it was just
There's an
like,
asterisk in there. There's an asterisk.
yeah, we're just like, I need you to do this. Why? Don't worry about that. I just help me out with this. It's something I need to get done. And no real question after that act. We just went and did it. And then when she realized, he was like, "Did you just use me?" It's kind of like,
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah, I was like, yes. But I said straight out yes. But it was a little bit. It was like, I needed to get this done. You're the only one that can help me here. But I didn't want to explain it to you because I didn't want you to necessarily go against me on this. So just like, let me not tell you the full truth. Let me not tell you. It's like, it's something there that you need to get through. It will help us win, right? And that's great.
Good. That's good. Like, that's great character right there. When you have your evil character using your innocent good character to do something that's going to benefit everybody, even if it's not necessarily good, even if it's not necessarily benevolent or faithful to your god or your deities or your pantheons or your organization.
It's not like Tamaya didn't feel a little bad, but it was just like, it's something that needed to be done. So it was something that was like kind of swept under.
It's a burden he was willing to bear.
Yeah, like everything else. But now on the thing that, like, back on the Catwoman thing, where how you mentioned her and changing, going from this really villainous cat and everything, and how she changed. You say she went through a redemption arc. And the thing I want to ask is both of you again. I want to go to Lady Potato first. I always love hearing her answers first. I'm biased, sorry. Is And again, we talk about Vegeta as well. The various ways that a evil player character, various arcs and things that a player character can go through. Like one of them being the redemption arc and changing and being more aligned with the good guys or the good NPCs. What other ones would you, as a DM or player or both, would you see with being with an evil character? Lady Potato? Okay, I think Lady Potato might either have a mic problem or has stepped out for a bit. So I will let Crusader Jackaran go ahead.
Could you ask that again? Because my concentration was off on that.
So piggybacking off of your thing with Catwoman, right, and her change to being a little bit more on the good side, her redemption, saying that you mentioned Vegeta, going through redemption arc. You as a DM, what other different ways would you try to take that PC in or lean them towards within your story for them? Like, what kind of story arc would you progress from instead of redemption arc? What other things you might try to lean them in, or they could themselves lean themselves into? Just
okay. I have several ideas of arcs for evil characters. I break them down into, like, there's the redemption arc. Okay, we just said that one. But what other arcs do you have? Well, you have the villainous arc, which is basically this player character is setting up to be the next era of villains. All right. I would say Lord of the Rings is probably a great example of that, where you get a bunch of villains who they're kind of like low men on the totem pole. They're not really important. They're just foot soldiers. And then later on, as the story unfolds, they begin to rise to more and more prominence. Superheroes are another good example of that. You take a sidekick hero, or take a sidekick's villain, and you watch as the sidekick levels up. You think of Dick Grayson or Nightwing. As he levels up, whatever villain he was against as a kid, they also level up. They're now an adult too. and they're still rivals. So you have that villainous arc of, okay, this player is wanting to make his character the next campaign's villain. So in this campaign, he's right now a hero. And then in the next campaign, he wants to fall to evil and he wants to be the bad guy. Uh, Anakin Skywalker. Now I'm thinking about it, he's a great example. You know, his journey is setting him up to be the next villain. Prince Arthas is another one from Warcraft. So that's what I'm thinking in terms of that. The next arc I'm thinking of is the Shakespearean arc, which that arc is very sad, very traumatic, or depressing. It's basically no happy ending for this character. All right, he's going to reach whatever goal he has set out for him, and then he's going to get murdered or killed, or some freak accident happens to him that stops him from getting that happy ending. You know,
When you say that, when you say that's a little bit more Arthas in a way, he's a little more of Shakespearean, you know.
I don't quite agree. I think he actually attained his villainy. You know, starting out as a hero and then becoming the villain that everyone was terrified of, only to be dethroned as the villain that everyone was terrified of. You know, I'm talking like Shakespearean. When I say Shakespearean, it's like, okay, you're an evil person who's a low man on the totem pole and you're climbing the ranks. And either you're experiencing setbacks. I mean, take any Shakespearean story, take any of them, where a character is going back and forth with their progress, and right towards the end or at some point they get backstabbed by someone they thought they could trust, or they get backstabbed, or they have an accidental death by some freak accident. You know, some kid could step on a rock, slip, and grab onto the ledge. And by them grabbing the ledge, it causes another rock to fall down the hill that hits the unsuspecting guy who just attained whatever goal he was seeking. You know, he's seeking true love. And he's like, I finally have true love. And then this rock comes rolling down and kills him, you know? So, like I said, it's a very depressing ending, but that's a possibility for an evil character. And then there's the doomed arc, where you have a character who I'm trying to think of some of those stories that I really hate. Well, Courage the Cowardly Dog has a lot of those, the doomed arcs, where it's the bad endings, where it's like, okay, this character ends up. Prince Arthas sort of has a bad ending, except for you actually do get to kill him, because when you end the Frozen Throne, he is now the Lich King, and he is supposed to stay on top of the Frozen Throne. He's not allowed to leave, and he's kind of just stuck there. But then you find out that no, he's not stuck there. He can move all over the place. But yeah, it's like, okay, the doomed arc is you're trapped in whatever circumstance or some form of hell, and your character is forced to relive that, or they're trapped in a dimension and they can't escape. And you know, that's a shitty circumstance to do, but that's something you can do. You know, for Nicholas, for your character Nicholas, a doomed arc for him is stuck in a perpetual loop where he's just barely unable to save his wife. He's almost, if he could just reach a little bit further, he can save her. Just a little. He missed her. All right, he has another chance. If he could just reach a little bit further, he missed her again. All right, next time he's going to get it. That type of circumstance. So that's something that you can do with evil characters. You know, it can be fucked up and sad, but it's an option. You know, I personally lean towards the redemption arc or the villainous arc, personally.
Yeah, those are kind of like the two easiest ones, realistically, in my opinion, to do.
They're most flexible too.
Yeah. So the question I asked, now that you're okay, let me say we worried, was that you as a player or DM, what kind of direction or story arc would you take your evil character into? What would you find besides redemption, which we talk about with both Vegeta, Catwoman? We already beat that with a dead horse. What other ones would you kind of take your characters into, or your player characters, that you're DMing for into, or try to lean them into?
Well, ultimately, it kind like, I would say it kind of depends on like overall what sort of character, like how they start out and what they're sort of doing. But overall, I actually really like the idea of the Shakespearean arc. It's the idea that you give your evil characters these setbacks, and whatever happens, nothing ever happens the way that it's supposed to happen. It's the idea that you may be able to be king, but what are you going to lose along the way? Is it going to be worth it? I think those are very interesting arcs to play as an evil character. Um, Now, as far as leading your players, it really does depend on the player. There are lots of circumstances where you could lead them down the redemption arc. The villainous arc is a very very easy one, as far as how to play that out. Um, the doomed arc that he mentioned as well. That's for Nicholas. Like he said, that's a really great circumstance. But again, it really comes down to figuring out. Well, I would say, just to back this up a little bit, the best way to pick an arc for your character is to figure out what sort of goals and motivations they have, as well as finding out from a DM's perspective how far your players may be able, may like how far they're willing to push their boundaries in order to attain these things. And those boundaries are also good for picking out um, which ones you should try and push. The things that let's say your evil character has something where they don't want to kill women, just as an example. You put them in a situation where they may have to do it in order to attain their goals. I don't know, that's
Well,
I kind of went off track a little there, but that's
you brought up the Doomed arc, and I thought of a great story that I've drawn a blank on which story it was, but Benefactor here might remember because it's a H.P. Lovecraft story.
That's way too many of those.
Yeah, but it's the one where the guy goes up to Massachusetts and he's trying to figure out this mystery of why this town is so weird. And he finds out that, long story short, at the end, he finds out that he is one of the fish people and he is mutating into one of the fish people. And the whole reason why he went up there was because of this like natural calling inside him to go there. And the story basically ends with him mutating into a fish person and then going into the sea to join this entire
oh
water
yeah.
cult.
I think I know which one. Let me take out my HP Lovecraft, one of my HP Lovecraft complete fiction books. I might not find the exact name of it, right?
I've
But I
heard of
think I know
that
what
story.
I
I know what
think I
you
know what
mean.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's an example of a doomed story arc. Because I wouldn't say, like, you might say, oh, it's him building up to be the next villain. No, he's just an ordinary minion at that point. And they articulate in the story that he is, he articulates, because it's from a first person. He articulates that he is losing his mind. He's like, I don't know what it is about this place, but I can't concentrate and I can't focus. And people are
So
acting weird.
so really how we could summarize the Doom Dark is it's really just your fate is sealed, and it's you, I guess, succumbing
Yes.
to your fate. The
Yes.
Shakespearean arc is where things don't turn out the way you want them to, or there's a tragic ending or something
Yeah,
like
I'd say
that.
tragic ending is probably the Shakespearean. That's how I would
Yeah.
articulate that.
This is a question I have personally to Crusader Jackaran here. What route do you think Tomias was gonna end up in, based on the list you gave here?
Illidan is like his perfect example. Okay. Illidan was Illidan started out with the doomed arc. Okay. Doomed. He did stuff bad and went really bad. And then he went the redemption arc. And then from the redemption arc, he went to the villainous arc. And then they did another like bait and switch or reverse Uno card where they took him from being a villainous arc at Black Temple to know the reason why he was doing Black Temple was to actually stop a greater threat in Sargeras. So the players who went and killed him at Black Temple or captured him at Black Temple, they were actually doing the wrong thing. So then they basically gave him a second redemption arc. And, that's how I kind of see Timaeus. Timaeus is trying to set up himself to be the next stage villain, but he's teetering on the Shakespearean ending and the redemption arc. He's jumping between those two things because on one hand he's looking at it as I could fold here. I could say, hey, I have a nice girl. I have my people. We can live forever in our ivory tower and live and die, and everything would be fine and good and dandy. The world's going to end before I die. Or after I die. So I don't need to worry about it in my lifetime. Or he could take the attitude of, if I can do something, I will. And that seems to be the more inclination that he has, is if I can do something, then I will.
You're not wrong. You really understand. That is my inclination to my is. Yes, it definitely is. If I can do something, I will. And the story, which I thought it was, I wanted to double check and make sure. That was definitely the Shadow over Innsmouth story that you're talking about.
Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it was before I said it and it was wrong. And someone in the comment section like, So I went through the thing. It was like, yeah, okay, that story was familiar. Wasn't sure it was the right one.
Fake HP Lovecraft fan caught in 4K.
That was the Shadow over Innsmouth story.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just very curious of that, like how you saw him going out and whatnot. I personally didn't see him. I there was inklings there, but I personally was not going through the redemption arc, mostly because again, this goes to the players I was with. None of them, which you mentioned very, very early on in that campaign, really put him going down that route. None of them really put him on.
None of the players did, but a god did. Okay,
yes.
Actually, technically 3 gods did. Technically 3 did.
Yes, they was trying to get him to,
2 gods. 2 gods. Well, one god was bullying him. The other god was demanding of him, and the third god was demanding. But Shavas basically said, I am not going to go down to your level. You have to come up to my level. And she didn't fuck with him at all. Like she let him go. So out of the 3, his inclination is towards her because she is faithful to his people. And she has no interest in thwarting him or stopping him. Her interest is in him fixing himself. That's her interest in him. So of the 3, for him, from his perspective, she has the most coherent, the most consistent goal, where the other 2 are much more manipulative and self-serving.
I'm not gonna get into that. Oh my god, with him there, that whole thing. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a little bit more nuanced. And like I said, none of the players could have that influence that she had over him.
But that's why I thought it wasn't going to really go down that path. Because again, me, I want the players to really be involved in that. He was going down because of that. But again, it's one that I feel like the players need to have a great influence to really snap the character out of their.
Well, there is that influence with Dawn for that particular character, because Timaeus looks at Dawn like a daughter he doesn't have. So he's taken a very fatherly mentor role for her, especially in the absence of her father. So, which Timaeus liked her father. So from his perspective, his codes and ethic is, I'll step in for a good man. I can't replace the man, but I can damn near try. I can damn near do my best so that that man can rest easy and she gets put on the straight and narrow.
So that's how you. So as a father daughter, I was trying to do the older brother who. Well, you're trying wrong. Like the older brother who is trying to, in essence, be the father figure that is missing. So because that was how I wanted to play that dynamic. Where he's more of like the older brother now that the father is dead. He's trying to make sure to look after her. So you're not wrong. Just your perspective was father daughter. Mine was like older brother, little sister.
And that could be a fair way of reading it too. That I'm just I don't think of the older brother trope. I go to, the top tier dad trope. Because you are basically the dad of that ship.
Yes, I know. Yeah, that was a joke. That was me. Yes, I was the dad of that ship. Just like you guys are literally like children right now. So, I can't listen. Twice is great. This is really good. I'm glad to see that perspective. So now I did. Was very curious of. Now this is going on, so now I'm gonna take a back seat on again. I don't think I talked about this part of some ideas, but I want this to be for you guys to go into, and I'll come in last again. Is when this goes with both you as a DM seeing a player character make this, as well as you, Lay Potato, as a player, and making a character like this. What you're this again going to building a character. What way or what circumstance would you make to make that evil character, this disposition, to make it that the DM will accept your character. So like this going back into earlier what Crusader Jackaran said, where it's just like, I don't want to see you just be an evil character just to be a dick. It has to be a reason, means that you have turned out this way and why you're adventuring out like this. How would you particularly make a character and what circumstance that led to them being evil?
Okay, I think I'll answer that one first. I think as far as the circumstances of why they're evil, um hmm, I would say that it would, to make them a character that the DM would accept, I would obviously work with them to see, if this character is going to work, and what sort of things, are going to be no goes for the players, because I know some DMs will have those sort of limits. Work with them, but typically I like to give my players some sort of reason to even pursue it, whether it's, their own power, or maybe they are trying to, as you say, for Nicholas, bring back someone they love. But um as far as what led them to this, it just, if I were to start from scratch,
Yeah,
I
think of it like
apologize.
as no. Oh, sorry, I didn't. Just think of it as like, what would you advise our viewers would be like a good example of a character, like evil character, like there's something that led them to be evil that you would give to a DM. Like, that's the way I originally wanted to put it, which is where
Okay,
how
sorry,
would you
yeah.
advise people on doing it?
Well, obviously the reason has to be very good. Typically I would advise that the reason be personal. Like, let's say, um, the reason that they're going out and doing evil things is because they're looking for someone, let's say, like in their military or their government, who, you know killed their mentor for an unjust reason. Like, maybe, let's say, their mentor was practicing magic, which could have been outlawed in this circumstance, and they this person doesn't necessarily believe magic is evil, even though they're going out and doing evil things with magic. um that might be a circumstance that would be acceptable, but ideally it would be one where they're not um causing major disrupt to the world. And if they are, perhaps I would advise them to take the approach of, they've been corrupted in some way. They're working for a larger force. That would be another way I would say would be a good circumstance to leading to a character doing the awful things they do. Um, what about you, Mr. Crusader? What do you think on that?
I was thinking very long and hard about your answer here, and I decided I could summarize it in one sentence. Shinji, get in the damn Ava. And for those of you who don't get that reference, it's basically forcing a child to do something they don't want to do, but they have to do because humanity is at stake. Or at least that's your perception, that humanity is at stake. You could take the perspective that the angels are here to save you and give you salvation. You could take that perspective. But under this circumstance, it's the kid doesn't want to pilot the mech, but you're forcing him to pilot the mech. So either through manipulation or physically beating the crap out of him until he actually jumps into the mech, whatever. That's sort of how I would summarize it.
Okay, so this because again, probably I could have worded that a little bit better in asking. So I'll put this more into now the DM side. As a DM, what are you looking for in say the player character's backstory and whatnot that is acceptable for you that will lead that them make an evil character? Like, what do they have to prove to you that will allow you to let them make an evil character? Because you kind of touched upon it, but you didn't really get a chance to explain it because we was really on a different kind of line of thinking when we saw about evil character at that point.
Well, I would say that the main thing that I would look for if a player is looking for to be an evil character in my game is that, I mean, it's a really, I apologize, this is a really hard question to answer. And like as soon as I go to answer, for some reason my mind's just like blanking on me.
Well, if I'm correct, he's referring to making a new character or making an NPC character, right? Or are you talking a player character from the DM's perspective?
Okay, so yeah, I'm sorry for that. Like if you like how me and you did it. You know what I mean? I thought I want to make an evil character. Here's the circumstance that led to them being evil character and what their overall goal and justifications for. Where again, what you said earlier, you're like, you don't when you see a person that makes an evil character who's doing it to be a dick, like their whole there's no real thing that leads to them being an evil character. Their character is just evil to begin with, and there's nothing in their so-called history that led them to have that kind of disposition. There was no certain that led them to have that kind of disposition. What is your so this one is really going to Crusader Jackaran more than it was for Lady Potato. Lady Potato, I want to hear from a player side. For Crusader Jackaran, when this I said I'm sorry, I kind of asked a bad question to you, Lady Potato. I should have worded it better. For you, Crusader Jackaran, mine is like as a DM, what are you looking for in the player's character backstory when talking to you to let them be an evil character? What circumstances lead to the disposition that you're willing to accept? You know, because you said earlier you don't want someone that has a character and they're just evil for evil's sake. They have no real reason why they're like this. They just want to be evil characters for the ha 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 ha.
Yeah. Well, I was going to let Lady Potato answer, but
my overall opinion would be that it would have to make sense. It can't just be like, oh, I'm evil because of this. Like their actual justifications for being an evil character, it actually has to make sense. You know, perhaps they started this cult to research things. That makes sense to me. They're going out and sacrificing people to these gods because he believes that with these sacrifices he's getting closer to bringing back his dead wife. That to me is logically sound. So it has to summarize my answer is that their reasons for being evil or their justifications of it have to have some form of cohesion. It has to make sense. It can't just be for the lulz.
Okay. Mr. Jackaran.
And my answer to that is if I don't like someone's reason or justification, I will tell them, no, that's not going to work. That's no good. Try something else. And if they say, and I've had this happen, they say, I don't have anything else. Okay, then I guess you need to think on it. Well, I can't really think of anything else. All right, don't worry. We have some time before the first game. Think on it. Think very careful about it. Until then, let's make your character. We'll build your character up, get them all good to go, and just think on it. And then usually by the next time we talk, they figured it out. They're like, I have an idea. How about this? And then they rattle off this whole thing about their idea. And it's like, okay, there you go. And usually that idea is a little bit more nuanced, it's a little bit more detailed, and it has more of an explanation. Now, sometimes what I left out is sometimes when I'm talking to the player, I'll throw out ideas to him. Like, well, okay, maybe he had a farm and the farm got stolen by his big farming company. Okay. Or got stolen by your father's rival, got bought out. And now you're trying to get money to sue him or whatever have you. Create motivation for their character and get their, I try to get the creative juices in their noggin flowing. That's like 99% of what I'm doing every day anyways. I just want people to creatively think about their characters and their stories. So that's typically how I handle that. And if a player can't do it, I've had plenty of players that I've said, okay, then, and they just bow out. I can't play this campaign. Okay, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. It's just not for you. It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
Okay. All right, all right. So I was curious. So that's you guys' take on that. All right. I, oh, sorry. I just had to laugh and cough there a little bit at the same time. So we talked really about the various things evil, things that make them appealing, what define them. Uh, we talked a little bit about betrayal and things like that. So now I was just curious. Is this was a little more personal again? I got that. This is going for more late potato because she got to play with me as an evil character. So, I want to hear her experience of playing with an evil character in the campaign and how would she take it? Because that was really her first D&D campaign according to her. So I was wondering, what was your perspective? How did you, feel about having an evil NPC player? And how do you felt it was handled by that player, the DM, and your fellow players, including yourself? So I'm curious of your all-around encompass on it.
Well, like I've witnessed you play a couple evil players. I actually have one question. Was Leon considered evil?
Yes.
Okay,
He's
because
supposed to
like
be
that was the first when you mentioned that question. That was the first circumstance that came to my mind was the whole Leon debacle. I even starting out as a new player, I always kind of had the perspective that it's a game and you're playing characters, that these aren't, I actually enjoyed having an evil character to the party because, like, especially in the setting of the campaigns, which was an end time thing and everything was in ruins, everything was doomed, having evil characters that are out for themselves, and they may work with you, but it's ultimately to progress their own goals. I thought that was an interesting, and I thought it was an interesting character, and it also made sense in that context. And I think, unfortunately, Leon died due to kind of a mutiny, which was collecting objects off of corpses. A lot of, I'd say, the vast majority of the players, as well as most of the NPCs there, were not into that. My character at the time, I was chaotic neutral, and my character took the stance of, well, they're dead, they're not using it anyways. Why can't we just use them?
So you
Like
agree with Leon, though?
I agreed with
You agree
Leon.
with Leon, okay?
I did agree with Leon. However, when the party was like, let's just kill him, I was like, all right, well, I'm not gonna get myself killed over this. I'm gonna just go over here. That being said, we were only maybe a few sessions in, and timeline wise, we had only been together for less than a day, so I wasn't gonna get myself killed over that. But it was still very interesting, and this whole situation, even to this day, still sticks with me as a very.
Actually, I would clarify, you didn't do nothing. You completely tried to stop the fight from
Oh
happening
right,
in the
that's
first
right, that's
place.
right. I apologize. It's been, this was probably 4 years ago.
Yeah,
For
yeah, you
context.
you completely stopped Evelyn from doing anything.
That's right, I did. I tried to convince them to not do it, but then Solomon's like, fuck it, screw it, let's do it anyways.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I did. I apologize, viewers. But ultimately, I think that it just, like I said previously, as far as the appeal, it creates a dynamic in the group of varying opinions.
Okay, but you got only a very short taste of Leon. That's why I didn't want to say name, but I was like, again, I was trying to really do this as a little quick story
through
time for the campaign that we played for End Time, since this featured a evil character within the game. So I was thinking from your perspective, like
Oh,
how your
you're wanting
time
like
is.
the long term of a okay. Well, for context, I was still playing the same character, Sylvanas. Again, chaotic neutral. Um, my character had a very different stance than the majority of the party, who was more good aligned. So I was kind of, I guess, funny enough, devil's advocate. Funny because I was a warlock. But from my perspective, like my character, I think took more to your opinions later on. Sort of started to see things from your perspective, and kind of actually agree with a lot of the things um, Tamias was saying, just based on her own experiences of dealing with dark gods and having been, I guess, manipulated and screwed over by them. She kind of came to a lot of like the same conclusions you did, but just a different route. So that was very interesting, seeing how people of different alignments can have, I guess, conclusive uh, end result or end opinions. So that, to me, from that experience, was what I enjoyed about that. I can't really answer too much on the DM side, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that, Crusader.
Well, I think your character, Sylvanas, her experience was shaped heavily on observing the cans and can'ts of people. And Tamias was a very can do guy.
Yes.
Um, with that being said, he's had several setbacks, several uh, failings that just completely blew up in his face. And by some miracle or another, or by his own sheer force of will, he managed to survive those setbacks of being drained of almost his entire existence, literally going down to one hit point fighting a revenant. Uh, or was it a wraith? I forget. Um, to him losing his eyes because he decided that, hey, no cost, there's no cost I'm unwilling to bear. Uh, so Sylvanas is looking at him as his sheer will and determination, and he gets things done, even in the face of very adverse circumstances.
Yeah,
Where,
that's true. I actually remember her specifically saying in the campaign, "You give me hope." So yeah, that's actually true. Just because of his capabilities and the fact that he was somebody kind of just like the rest of them who was
yeah,
capable.
yeah, and then you take the example of some of the other people in the party. Uh, Tharavel being a great example of a guy who is very gun ho, uh, talks like he knows what he's doing. He's very confident in what he's doing, but whether he can pull it off is a whole other thing. Uh, you have other people in the party who have this presence of, oh, I can do this thing, and then they don't do it at all. They talk a big game. Oh, I'm the best at this, or oh, I can definitely do this. I can handle this, and then they don't handle it at all. So Sylvanas is looking at this and she's judging it like, okay, you're supposed to be of good moral character, and he is supposed to be of bad moral character, but that's not how I see it. The reality and what I'm being told are two different things.
Exactly. And that was a big thing for her character, was like observing, being told one thing, but then reality is something totally different. So with her discernment, she became more akin to thinking like Tamias, because she saw that in a lot of ways he was right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So,
But
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to, I guess, well, I guess you kind of answered. What was it like navigating being in like the evil character in a party that was good aligned? I haven't really had too much experience with that, but I'm curious what your experience is like. Um, if you have anything to add from what you've said.
Yeah, be dictator.
Be a dictator.
Be dictator. No, I think realistically with actually taking to mind in the other Edu character I played before Chrome Jailer, I think the thing that helped make it a little bit easier in that perspective was end up being kind of like the leader of the party, kind of being the one that took charge. Um, my perspective of playing like the evil character within as Samai within that kind of party was more of like I said, they want to do good things. I want to do good things, but my means are a little bit, harsh. Which me as the player understood that, and so I try to navigate that as both the player, so the player characters can feel like they're doing good, while I can feel like I'm still fulfilling what my character goal was to try not so much to meet the middle, but again manipulate them to do things that were necessary to get what needs to be done. I felt there was no, which again, being a leader helped facilitate that. We're just like it does not matter if you think this is not the right way. It's like, well, we need to do this. If we don't, and we do it your way, something is gonna happen that makes it harder for us later on. I'm trying to find a really good example of that. I can't think of it off the top of my head. So for me, playing with a bunch of good characters always been if something they can't do, I will do it if need be. If I have to kill this guy because they don't want to in order to find where someone is at, like that interrogation I did, I don't think you guys would be able to really interrogate someone and like stab them in the hand. This is when we went to the past to get information on where this person is, like say something like Dawn went missing, you guys wouldn't be able to like torture, kill, and do horrible things to people to find out where she is. Me as an evil character, I definitely would do it. I would have no hesitation on it and make it a point, even if you always against it. So, like I said, it's for me, it's always about just doing things that the others that don't have the not even just the thought, but even the moral standpoint to do. I guess the other big example is when we got the game put into the past. I was willing to genocide halflings if it meant preserving the correct future that we came from. If it meant that I have to kill and genocide all in this town and everything, I am willing to do that. Which even my one of the player characters, who was my assistant drone in a sense, even asked me. He really brought that up too. He was like, do you feel comfortable doing like, are you okay with this? Where somebody had to really be like, no, but it must be done. And I really like that he actually asked me that, because that showed a real, for me, it showed a real insight onto my everybody to see, which is like, he's not doing these things because he enjoys it. He's not doing it because he gets off on that. You know what I'm saying? He's doing it because he must. He's doing it because it's the only way to get things done for the greater good. And this goes back to what I said earlier, for evil character doing whatever it means necessary. The ends justify the means kinds of people. So that's how I always go forward with my evil characters, is very much within that regard, which is why I want the player characters again to try to simmer that down and change my character a little bit from being so hardline to gradually going a little bit softer.
Well, I know we've talked about a lot, but hmm, I guess the next thing I really think we should talk about is from a DM's perspective, and I guess from a party perspective, um, how do you handle betrayals? Um, how about you answer this first, Benefactor? Um, how do you handle it when the evil character betrays the party?
As a DM, again, if they're evil PC, personally, we worked on it so that I'm already prepared for it. You know what I mean? So I handle it where it's fine. So okay, they did it. They did what I needed them to set out to do, which we came to agreement for. I know how the players will, in essence, go for it. Now, as a player character, how I would handle if someone betrayed me, it depends on my character's characteristics. So we go with someone like Tomias. I would handle it and what was the reason you did this before I, kill you. In essence. Quick example was with one of
Tamias takes the judge, jury, executioner route, whereas Dimitri would not question it. It would be, you betrayed us, or particularly you betrayed me, therefore die.
Well, I don't get to say Dimitri because Mr. Jackaran already cut in front of you before I got to get to Dimitri's part. So, but he is actually 100% correct. There would be no question there. It would just be like, nah, that's not happening. It happened once, never again. You're out. Not only did you try to betray and harm me, you tried to betray and harm my brothers. I don't play that. So and like I said with Tamaj, it would be like, I want to hear the reason why. You better have a really good reason before I kill you, or why you just did this. You know what I mean?
Now, how would Angelus handle it?
That's a little bit hard. Angelus is like the playboy type. If it was one of his vampire mistresses, it would be quite a sad affair for him. I don't know how fully I would do that. If it was another player character that did it, it would mostly come down to PvPing and draining the ever living crap out of their blood if I won. Betrayal is not taken lightly by nobility, and even more so, he's a vampire. Just like, did you just sell me out to like vampire hunters? Before they get here, I'm gonna make sure you're nothing but a husk. So, but so it also depends on the severity of the betrayal with Angelus. You know what I mean? So he was a little bit harder. I never got to fully define him, since I never got to play him long enough. But from my understanding how I made him, it would be like that. Very much so. That's such a really good question. How would I handle betrayals, huh? Good thing nobody dares betray me.
Yeah.
That you know of.
Dun, dun,
True,
dun.
that I know of.
I mean, what's his name is really, really lucky. Galleon didn't say shit.
Back to the hammer story. Like, the hammer, like, you mean the hammer that we're sworn to protect from, daddy that yelled at us? You really was doing that? Yeah. That was in the third strikes. I think I even told that cat like that. You're already like on strikes here. Like,
Damn.
Let's be clear. You exist merely because I allow you to.
But
it's not wrong. He pretty much did. But sorry, go ahead, Potato.
I was just gonna ask what Batman's thought, or not Batman, what Crusader's thoughts on that were. How does he handle betrayals as a DM, as well as in party?
As a DM, depends on the severity of it, but I think you guys already know. I will hijack a player's character. I'll say, all right, he's now mine. Thanks. Thanks for developing a villain for me. Again, it depends on the severity, depends on the impact of the entire overarching story of everything. Because, as seen with Tamias, you can have a villain character who's working for the good guys, and that's okay. I'm okay with that now. Prior to, I wasn't. As a player, I could give you, I want to say, I should probably start with the characters that would be okay with betrayal. And of them, there is only really Graves and Hazim. Those are probably the only two characters that I have that find betrayal even remotely acceptable. And that's circumstantial. They might say, well, if I were in their shoes, yeah, it makes sense. Whereas if they even find it like WTF, then they would probably resort to killing you outright. Like, no judge, no jury, none of that. Just kill them. They're a traitor. You can't trust them. My other characters, they take varying degrees of punishment. So like Gustav, he might take an approach of, we need to bring this person before a court martial, and if they resist, then we, me being the high ranking officer here, I will make a determination and I will probably sentence them to death because that's the only punishment suitable for traitors. My character Jackaran, he would not think twice. He would say, "You're a traitor. You're gonna die." And I have a few other characters. Lessenvale, his personality would be kill a traitor, whether he was royalty or not. He would just say, "I would," when I say royalty, whether he is prince status or not, he would say, "Kill the person." If he's a gladiator, he would say, "Kill the person." I'm trying to think of some of my healer characters. Yeah, I think all of them would say kill him, kill a traitor, because they don't. That's unacceptable. There's the reason why it's at the bottom of Dante's Inferno.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And that'd be basically my answer to that whole thing.
Yeah. From the DM's perspective, again, it really does depend how badly and egregiously they betray them. Um, I personally have never had to deal with that circumstance, so I can't really give you any particular examples of things that I've experienced in my own games. However, I can talk.
I would say I'm not so sure about that. You haven't had any long-term betrayals. And actually, I would say you have been the betrayer in one circumstance.
I have. I have.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to refer to the first circumstance where you've been betrayed, which is the Chaos Bullet. That incident.
Yes, I have. Right, the chaos incident. Yeah, that was fun. I was betrayed.
Yeah.
That was
And then the other circumstances when you were working for the Resistance, you decide to say, "Feck this, I'm going to go over to the other side."
Was that in Hovel?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you were originally on the Resistance side.
Yes.
You defected.
I did defect. I defected because of the party's actions. I defected because they were just like, they weren't even willing to talk to Myas. They were so unorganized, and at that point I'm pretty sure I even had spoken to Myas, and he had told me, was like, we basically have to do this, and I was like, well, at this point I don't really see a reason to work on this side, so I defected, if I'm recalling things correctly.
I think she had a very. I mean, Sylvanas is looking at things, or was looking at things from survival. So she was looking at it as the odds of survival don't favor the Resistance.
Exactly. She knew that they were bound to lose anyways. So
yeah. Well, she didn't technically know they were bound to lose, but she was
pretty sure.
She was using street math to be like, yeah, there's no way these guys are gonna win.
Yeah, basically. So yeah. So I have been the betrayer. I guess that is true. But in the context, like we were in the past and this was something that was going to happen anyways. So I mean, I technically did, but technically didn't. Yeah. It's complicated. Um sorry, I got off track with my thinking. I am not thinking.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to talk about another character.
Oh, right. I was gonna, since you were talking about like how your characters would react to being betrayed, I was gonna bring up some of my characters.
Yes.
I'll start with Sylvanas. I believe that she ultimately she would be a bit more circumstantial. Like it would depend on who did it and how severe it is. But in general, Sylvanas would definitely never forget that somebody betrayed her. She would hold on to that no matter what it was. Unless like it was something that was resolved and she found out they were being manipulated or something that really pulled at her heartstrings, she may be more forgiving of. But If it was something very severe that she couldn't forgive, she would kill them. She
Well,
probably would.
that makes sense because she's a character who had every time she had a tribe, it was taken away from her.
Exactly.
So if the betrayal is at the cost of the entire tribe, she would
She's going to
find that
eliminate the problem.
unforgivable.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a person who's being forced into that position, she might be more empathetic and understanding of, I get where you're coming from.
Exactly. But if it was somebody, especially if she knew they were acting on their own free will, that would be something that would be completely unforgivable in her eyes. If it jeopardized the people she cares about, because that's really what she cares about most. Um, Blair, on the other hand, I think Blair, hmm, Blair probably wouldn't kill somebody if it was a personal betrayal. She wouldn't. She's she's not that spiteful in that sense. I think if it was Blair also takes the approach of people don't always act on their free will, much like Sylvanas does, but Blair has an understanding of it more like um from the magical, like people worshiping demons sort of thing. Uh but I would say Blair's quite forgiving as far as betrayal's concerned. Unless it was like, yeah, I actually I don't think there'd be very many circumstances where she would kill just for her.
Blair probably looks at it, correct me if I'm wrong, probably looks at it like there's nothing anyone can do that creates such a result that can't be undone. No matter what you do, you can always undo something. All the betrayer is really doing is just outing themselves of their moral character or their character that they are, the person that they are. Short of killing someone, she's probably looking at it as there's nothing they can do that's really that big of a deal in terms of betrayal. Betrayals happen all the time.
Yeah.
They're a common thing, and you can always undo them, except for murder. That's the
Well,
one time you really can't.
yeah, I think Blair would be somewhat forgiving. She may not always forgive, but she wouldn't take revenge for betrayal. She wouldn't be vengeful unless, you know, the only circumstance she may be somewhat vengeful is if it aligns with something else. Like, let's say somebody defects to the enemy side and now this person's an enemy and getting in their way. That might be the only circumstance she may, have a slight, itch of revenge there, but she wouldn't be going at it just for the sake of revenge. She's not that kind of character.
Well, yeah, she does take a very if the shoe were on the other foot, what would I do? If I were in their
Exactly.
position, what would I do? And she actually has the luxury of
Reading
of
people's minds.
well, as I say, she actually has the luxury of being in the era that she is in. Contrast that to Sylvanas, who is in an era that she is in that is resource scarce, uh, resource starved, and on the brink of extinction, where Blair doesn't have any of those problems. She's perfectly, you know, she's limited by her income and whatever fucked up shit she wants to deal with that day. If that seems like a fair assessment of their circumstances.
I would say so, but overall, not a vengeful person at all.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, so
Oh, this is sorry to interrupt. This is something based. There's two things actually, based off a little bit what Crusader Jackaran here had brought up. But I wanted to make sure we gave time and everything. One was, did you ever have? This goes on to what you said with the sister-in-law and everything you had at a New Year's Eve game. Have you ever had anyone have a knee-jerk reaction response to the fact that one of your player characters and whatnot was evil? And then the next one is more over to what you said a little bit earlier with how do you handle evil PC betrayals and what they do, when you kind of take over their characters. The next one for that is you never really explain how you handle taking over them. You always say you take over them, but you never explain how you handle taking over them. So the first one again is that have you ever had have you ever had a knee jerk reaction or like a spaz out because one of the play characters are evil in your game, and how the players deal and handle with that if it ever happened, what I mean.
No, I've never had it happen. I always let the evil players know that there is a risk of me taking their character, and that seems to do a pretty good job keeping them on balance, knowing that if they go too hard, that they're giving their character to me. Um, so yeah, I've never had that. Um, the knee jerk reactions, actually, when I talk about knee jerk reactions, I'm more so talking about other DMs, and I'm talking about that from my perspective as a DM. There's this knee jerk reaction, this just sudden internal need, and DMs, we fight this all the freaking time, non-stop. We just got out of a game, Benefactor, where the DM couldn't help himself because he has no self-control. He's a new DM. You want to do something. Something is happening and you want to intervene. You want to do something. And the knee jerk reaction is to do something. But as a DM, you have to just hold your breath, take a deep breath, breathe in, breathe out, let the players play. Let them talk, let them engage, wait for them to address you as the DM. DM, I want to do this thing. I want to roll for an attack. Okay. And you just let them do what they want to do. Don't go jumping the gun. Let things unfold. See what happens.
Yeah, how about you, Lady Potato, for the first one? You ever been involved with people, having a little bit of a spaz out or a knee jerk reaction to finding out one of the player characters is evil, or they did something that was, betrayal or a little bit of a detriment to the party, and then someone just blew their lid?
Hmm. I As a DM, no. I'm pretty sure I've had examples of witnessing other players do it at the table, but I'm not immediately coming up with it, but I know that I've had that experience before. Just may have been a while ago, so I'm really sorry for not procuring a good answer on that.
No, it's fine. It's not meant to be one of the sick group like that. Like I couldn't play evil characters, so and even then the people that I prefer DMing, being in their games, I never really had a player do that so far and everything, or a DM. That both of them have been really understanding. Shout out to Eve Dalian that was here before. And obviously Crusader Jackaran is another one. I've been in other games with randoms once in a while. Those I usually be chaotic good characters on. I usually don't go evil characters. I already know how most of them perceive evil and player characters. I just don't bother with the trouble with that. If it's someone I know personally, it's a lot more easier to go through that and everything. So yeah, I've never really got a chance to ever really experience that, and so I was just
Actually,
curious.
you know what? It wasn't actually an evil character, but it was one that was perceived to be evil. I had one this story as a DM. Basically, the party was traveling along. It might have been right before you joined Benefactor, but they had encountered like this necromancer, and I wasn't necessarily setting him up to be an evil character. Spoiler alert: I was taking more of like the neutral route of necromancy, that he does it just because um he's instead of sending live people to do things, why not send zombies? That was more or less his sort of moral uh perception of what he was doing. But when the party encountered him, he sort of just made like an off comment to the cleric in the party, who was like, "Oh, necromancy's bad," and he was like, "Well, you religious people don't really get it." And she took that, which, keep in mind, this cleric was neutral good. She took in mind, she took that, and she actually just killed this guy, just point blank, which basically kind of fits into the she killed him based on just being evil or perceived as being evil. So that did actually happen. I forgot about that, so thanks for reminding me.
Okay. So they luckily it wasn't a player character, it was an NPC in
It
that
was an
regard.
NPC in that
But
regard.
one of them just was like, oh, you're raising dead, you're evil. Smite. Okay. That's still a good story there. And then
Yeah.
to the other thing, and going into things Crusader Jackaran said when having evil player character that do very blatantly evil things like working with the bad guy and stuff. He takes their player character and uses them. But again, you never really told us how you handle doing that. Like how do you make that transition of taking the character from them?
I would say I actually take a very similar approach to you. I generally, when my character, let's say if my player starts to act in those ways, I would take the approach of talking to them and trying to figure out their motives, and then ideally, hmm, I would say if they go too far off the wagon, I may like if they're gonna be like, yeah, my character's justifying working for the enemy because it's gonna serve his purposes or whatever. I may take the approach of taking that character. I personally haven't had this happen, but I think it could work. But if there's somebody who has told me ahead of time and they're not necessarily going to be in line with my main antagonist entirely, I may let that character play out. But again, it really depends on what they're doing. But if there's somebody is doing it and their justifications make sense, I may not do it. But if they're doing it just for the LOL, I want to be evil, I would definitely take that approach more swiftly.
But how you get a little more detail? How you handle it with that player exactly?
The one who's being like LOL, that's
Yeah, like you're gonna take their player character from them. How players are very sensitive nowadays with their player characters. You do anything bad or anything to them, they lose their mind.
that's true. I would say I wouldn't just straight up do it. I if they were doing things that I would warn them first. If they're going to be like, I'm going to do this thing, that's like, I'm going to sacrifice these children, I'm going to be like, are you sure you want to do that? If you do that, I may take away your character. I'd probably give them a bit of a warning.
Okay.
I wouldn't just do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't give them that warning. I would just do it. Because at that point it's like, okay, now I'm changing what they're going to do. I'm changing their intentions for that character. I don't know why the character would do it. I don't know what is in the player's mind why their character would do it. But once they make that choice, okay, this is the defining moment for that character, and I'm taking the entirety of everything I know about this character, and now this character has come to its maturation, and boom, he's now mine. Thank you.
Oh, that's you're the much more abrasive approach. It's just like, so you just sacrificed those kids, huh? So I need to make a new character. You hand the character sheet and they're like, what for? Because you need a new character. But no, it's my character now.
Roll 4d6s. Six
Right,
time.
right. It's like, okay, he's mine now. Like, it's like, wait, what? Yeah, he's mine. Like,
Where
good job. He's mine now.
Lady Potato take the approach of, which I do gotta give you in that regard. If you bring it up to them, not Lady Potato, because I actually go into mines afterwards as well. Where I kind of think where you're coming from when you being a DM and both of the play. The DM's like, if you do this, you lose your character. A lot of players generally wouldn't be swaying like, oh, I want that to happen, and then change their minds, which is a little bit of, in essence, their metagaming because you gave them that fair warning at that crucial moment. But I do believe in giving a warning, but I believe not to be like straight out there with it of what's going to happen. I would make it very subtle, like, are you sure you're gonna do this? Yes. All right. Warning thing. This will have just let me like it's just supposed to go to any decision. They won't know them. They have to go to any decision. Warning: there will be consequences for this. It's just always so it's try to be a little more subtle, not the outright thing, but be like, what I'm taking, but be subtle, like, remember there's always a consequence for your action. There's always something that's
Remember,
gonna happen.
once you make this decision, there is no going back. All your progress up to this point will not be saved.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I would give it a little more of a subtle flair, which not to wholly like change their minds. They don't know what's gonna happen. But so it could technically be seen as a subtle, maybe make a change of mind, but it's more like you can make a choice. I'm not stopping you. You're nothing, but you know how everything going through the campaign. You make this choice. It is a choice you made. You must be ready to live with what's going to happen. Because when I take your character, and this goes for anything, this goes for anything, not just taking character. If you make a choice or decision, anything, I'm one of those people. Do not come, excuse the language, bitching to me about something, because I will sit here and shut you down. And when you find out what your character missing, you're like, well, you took my character. Well, you sat here. You sacrificed a fleet of innocent children to summon this devil lord to this plane that you are either working for, with, or whatever. At this point, I'm going to turn you into antagonist, an extra antagonist for the campaign. Congratulations. You know what I mean? If you want to complain to me, I'm like, well, look, you did this at this point. This you slowly escalate to like Jagger said, so you hit like this apex point where it's just like I have no way to let you play this out anymore. I like Labus, they say I let people play the evil characters out, but for me, once you do hit a certain particular point where I can't work that anymore, it's just like, yeah. This is you have to make another character. This is now impossible to work with.
Yeah, it's not the same as like I did with Timaeus, where Timaeus is like, I'm going to do this blood sacrifice, and I know what that means, but the player doesn't. So I asked the player, "Are you sure you want to do this?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm sure." I'm like, what's the worst that could fucking happen? Okay. And now I have the permission of the player to proceed. I'm letting the player know. I'm letting the player know, not the character. The character doesn't know what's going to happen. He's like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I'm letting the player know. Once you do this, you're not going to be able to undo it. Goes for it. Now he's blind. Okay? Like, I have all kinds of conditions like that in all of my games. In Star Wars, you can get cybernetic pieces. Okay, so when players do certain things, it's like, okay, are you sure you want to do this thing? Because if you cut off your hand, you can get a cybernetic piece, or you can get a clone and regenerate your regular hand, whatever circumstance happens. But I draw a line with that. It's like, if it's going to be something that they're still going to have their character, but it's going to impact them, it's going to impact their life by whatever decision they're about to make, I'll ask them that and be like, hey, I'll make sure whatever it is that the player has a chance to confirm or reject the thing that's about to permanently scar them. It's
And
not
correct
the
you.
same.
Sorry, just to correct you though, it wasn't necessarily blind, because I gained magical sight, but in exchange, my eyes were red, and when I cast magic, I bleed from my eye.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't know.
Pain.
Here's the thing about that. I didn't know what you would get. You rolled 1d6 on a table, and I looked at the table and said, "Oh, okay, he got blind." You could have had other things happen, and when you went back a second time, you got asked to do another offering to roll again on that table. Okay, if you remember that. So you could have kept going back to get all of those modifications, all those sacrifices. I forget what they were called. They're called something. Blood rituals of some kind. You could have done those again and again and again until you had nothing left to give. Which Kaharu was encouraging you to do that. But no, I'm saying that with the contrast of those type of decisions, all right, I give the player chances to make those calls. When you're going down the road of, oh, I'm trying to fuck with the other players by making my character evil and I want to become a villain against the party. Well, now you're just working for me. Just you're doing it in a more convoluted and complicated way of working for me, when I know how to work for me better than other people know how to work for me. So why don't you step aside and let me play my character? Because you're basically just making an extra character for me to use. That's how I look at it.
There's a subtle fun in being like the spy and everything like that.
That's
Again,
why I
it's
have.
always based on how people play, but it's always subtle fun in being like the evil character that's the spy and is helping, the antagonist and whatnot of the party to get things done and work DM on that. There's always some fun to be had with that. But again, that's based on everyone's relation with each other. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I think the only way that kind of arc can work is if the players plan to betray the villain. Like, maybe they start out working for or sorry, I shouldn't say villain, the antagonist. Maybe they start out working for the antagonist, but maybe through their adventures of working with the party, they eventually grow to see that their antagonist or their boss is wrong, and they betrayed them. I think that's the only real circumstance that can kind of work.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the redemption arc, which is in my campaign, the Scion, the two characters had, I'll name them as the characters they're fine with it, which was Gisela and Hector. That was their particular outline, was they were going to go through the redemption arc and kind of, in essence, betray the benefactor and the people that they worked for in the long run, because the party, they don't feel right killing the party after what they've been through together. So again, that's the player and the DM. Again, it goes back to like our thing before, talking and working together and coming to a mutual understanding and whatnot. And then the redemption is between both the evil NPC and the evil PC and the player characters actually making bonding moments and really getting to know, the evil character and each other to form a closer bond. So it always comes down to, some of you guys, to all viewers, but as DM and player, like, always going to come down to communication and understanding your group of players or the player that you're doing this and stuff with, and just talking it out, because that's the point of this game. We're all here to have fun in our way, talk about it, and work it out. I already know that if Crusader Jackaran is my DM, he doesn't mind evil characters, but he doesn't want the more spy type that's going to, end up working. But at that point, for him, it's just like, it's less work for me to really work with you, and I'll just take the character. Understandable. For some people, it's like, some players more enjoy it. I want to work with you because I like this character. I want this to be a thing where even at the end of the day, the party will still thwart us. You know what I mean? I do actually have a character I would have loved to do that with, that I have in the back burner, but you gotta know your general way about going about it. I don't bother using that one. But who knows? Maybe I'll do it with Evandalion one day. You know what I'm saying? And go on, because I did it with him. That was the one that played Gisela, was our friend Evandalion. He played Gisela, and me and him did that together on working on how he acts and responds and whatnot to being that party betrayer and whatnot. We worked together on how it would work out. But that is, for the most part, all things I wanted to go through. Is there any maybe story or references you guys want to go in for a little bit before we call it a night, I guess? Or unless somebody got something else to say? Oh, my throat hurts.
I think that's pretty much covered everything. Um, what about you, Crusader? Any stories? Or are you not there?
Hmm?
Well,
Oh, he might have stepped out for a bit. So, but yeah, we had great fun there. As Samaj and Sylvanas, me being an evil character, I was a little sad that no one was able to.
You guys hear?
Oh, welcome back.
There we go. Yeah, I was here. As my microphone got unplugged, so it was. I said there were some things I did want to talk about. Okay, so yeah, all right. So we already went over player desires. So that was in my notes of something I wanted to talk about. Something I did want to talk about. As a DM, we experience this all the time. Typically, we deal with sabotaging our players and their goals, or creating barriers that potentially sabotage the players. Um,
Are we sure we don't want to save that for another video? Another talk?
I'm sure this is going to be relevant. Uh, how would you handle sabotaging an evil player and their goals? I'm going to throw that to Benefactor first. How would you go about sabotaging an evil player and their goals?
It depends on the character type. If I'm the intellectual type, and I find out that they're kind of have a evil goal that is something that I'm against, or that's something that'll be against
Let's go
us.
with Vegeta. Let's use Vegeta as an example. Your player is Vegeta. He's on the redemption arc. How would you sabotage him, or potentially put a barrier in his way that he can sabotage himself?
Oh, like I said, that this on the if I'm an intellectual, like to deal with someone like Vegeta as the intellectual type. It would literally be just kind of doing little things that would make him feel like he was a big man, but he kind of really failed in the long term. So, like I said, it was something that similar happened. That's technically kind of what happened in Dragon Ball Z to him with the Frieza arc, where he was trying to collect the Dragon Balls, the villain trying to collect the Dragon Balls, and the hero trying to collect the Dragon Balls. It would be more of me doing something where he can get that, he get that one Dragon Ball or so. But I always make sure to keep the full ultimate goal of collecting all of them from him by like hiding it, slowly shifting, make sure he never finds like that last one or two. I would go by that. So for me, if I was an intellectual type, it would be more of just trying to slightly subvert him from ever achieving that evil goal. But like I said, it's really one of those hard things because again, this goes to me as a player and just it is very dependent. I want everyone to have a sort of fun. So it's one of those things where I'm just like,
Well,
mm.
what if his goal is to get revenge? He's an evil character who's dead set on revenge. Do you move the goalpost then?
If I was this now in general, if I was like a relatively good character, I would try to as a chaotic good character, I can answer this. I would try to help him get his revenge, but stop him from killing the person. So it would be like to try to teach him, you don't have to kill him. You can get it. You can make his life miserable. You can get him locked up. You can do stuff to him, but don't kill him. Don't cross that line. You know what I'm saying? So I would help him get to that revenge.
For an evil character?
If he was evil, if he was an evil character, and I was being like some good character, his goal was revenge. I would help him get to that revenge, like get to that person to get his revenge. But I would not let him cross the line. I wouldn't let him kill the person. I'd be like, don't cross that line to kill the guy. There's other ways you could torment him, but you don't have to necessarily take his life. All right. We ruined his operations. He can't succeed at whatever he's doing. You know what I mean? You have avenged whatever reason your revenge is. And also what his reasoning for revenge is. I would try to make him get to get to right there the finish line and be like, don't kill the guy. Don't cross that line. You thwarted him. You did all this. You don't need to do this. Whoever you're avenging, I'm sure they're happy with what you did here. That's kind of something and then this is me also projecting a bit with as my evil characters sometimes, like my evil characters like that, because I like to make them have a sorrowful event, usually a loss that turns them into why they have the disposition. Is one of my ways for making their concepts is generally a loss. For Tomias, it was his female best friend that got killed, and the guy killed, whole long story that I'm not gonna get into. So, I'm much more understanding of that. If I was much more on the lawful good, I would, or more like the whole really goody goody two shoe type. I would try to just talk to him and just at every point talk him out of doing it. You know what I mean? because completely like I'm not even gonna help him. Dude, I'm like don't you just shouldn't do this at all.
So you're sabotaging him. Are you the DM talking to him? Excuse me. Are you talking to him, or are you using NPCs to talk to him?
Oh, you're as a I thought you asked me as a player character.
No, DM. I'm asking DM.
As a DM, if they're
how would you sabotage them? That's what I'm wondering.
I would let them sabotage themselves. I'm not really gonna.
Well, right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, what type of obstacles or barriers would you put in their way so they either sabotage themselves or you intentionally put something in their way that will sabotage them if they trigger it? Because there's always kinds of barriers, but I'm saying this is like for a good character, it's simple, it's easy. Like, okay, you have a choice: do the good deed and save the child, or do the bad thing and the child dies. But how do you exactly do that type of scenario with an evil character? Because the evil character can say, I don't know that child. How do I know that's a child? That could be a demon. So boom, blast the bad guy. Like, an evil character can do that.
I would try a bit of a hard ultimatum, and this is why I also don't like characters that have like just everyone's dead kind of thing in their life. Make it be a true ultimatum. Like if you kill me, you while you get that satisfaction, this person will die, or it's very hard. It's really depends on the moment of the story.
Well, that's why I used a character like Vegeta. You're the DM for Vegeta. How do you fuck over Vegeta? He's got no one. And that's actually the trick question. He does have someone. He has people, but they're in his story, depending on what part of his story, they're an ally. And they're either an ally or they're a rival or compatriots that he doesn't really value. They're more like rivals, So you have these relationships that you can sabotage, but how much sabotaging do you want to do?
Well, at that point it would be more of and this is actually going to be great because this is the topic I want to talk about next week. I'm not going to go too deep into it. This is where I would make a personal antagonist for the player. So if his goal is, say, again, revenge, maybe I'll put antagonist that is there to just get in the way of him getting revenge because for some reason he doesn't like that player character. Something in their history, he doesn't like him. He knows he's going out for this revenge, and is an NPC that will constantly just try to get in his way. Where now it's the goal to get to your revenge. You now must deal with what is this, deep-seated resentment, or why is this person getting in your way? Why is this person antagonizing you? Now you must get into that crux of the relationship with that character. You know what I mean? I would just and again, if it was revenge, search for something, this is where I like having again. I'll talk about this again much more. I would like to go to the next week. Personal antagonists to the players. I like the players to each, in a way, have an antagonist that is personal to them. When I, write for them and make a world for them so that they have that. But I won't go too deep into that. But that would be my answer to that.
So then let me pan over to Lady Potato. How would you obstruct a evil character or sabotage them or give them the opportunity to sabotage themselves if you're dungeon master and you have an evil player character in your campaign? Do you have any ideas of what you would do? Is she there? No. Okay.
Actually, I am here. Sorry, my mic was just muted. I know we keep saying this a lot, but a lot of it is really circumstantial. What are they trying to achieve? And
well, let's
honestly,
use your Attack on Titan guy. Let's use him.
All right. For him, I mean, ultimately, if it was the choice between him and his friends, I think would be an obstacle or something that puts his friends in danger. That would be something that you would be able to use against him to curb his choice and actions. But honestly,
Okay.
that's probably about it for that character.
Interesting. So you have to basically sabotage or threaten to do his friends.
Yes.
And
That's his crutch. That's like um from at least from my understanding of the character, he's pretty much willing to sacrifice anything, his own life, to save his friends. So anything that puts his friends in danger would be the only way to really sabotage his plans.
so allow me to entertain this idea for that circumstance. If he was given the prospect of a thing that could help him save his friends or protect them, all right, he would pursue it, right? I don't know this character, just for clarity's sake.
I would say perhaps.
Okay, so he might go the route of, all right, I'm going to go and get this object that will help me protect my friends or keep them safe. And he goes down this road, and then he gets another barrier in his way. Is he inclined to say, frick the objective, I'm going to leave this quest? Or is he inclined to say, no, I need this thing to protect my friends?
I get what you're saying. Yeah, no, he's definitely the type of character that would bully his way through and try and do whatever is necessary to get that thing. That would be his approach.
Okay, all right. Good, like right there. That's a part of what I wanted to get out of that was that abstract idea of sabotage is, okay, how do you motivate this guy to do more than just I'm here to protect my friends? And when you have that evil player in your game, how do you motivate them? Because I mean, I saw this with Benefactor's character Nicholas, where it's like someone could die, and he's like, okay, that's not my problem. And then you're like, okay, how do I motivate this guy? He's evil.
Oh, yeah, how you motivate him. This guy has a library that he knows, or he knows information perhaps that might be useful to him.
Right. You know, that's this is a part of my the conundrum that I as a DM constantly struggle with is understanding the motivations for players. So I'm always interested in other dungeon masters and storytellers interested in what their approach is to it. And that's why I wanted to talk about that particular point, because people generally lump it in with storytelling, but as a dungeon master, we're always looking for obstacles and hurdles to throw at our players. We're perpetually Donkey Kong hurling barrels at Mario. I'm not going to go into many things difficult or easy. Something I did want to talk about. Well, this will probably be the last thing, I think. Things that I look for in terms of setting, and setting matters. This is where setting really matters. I look at how corruption impacts evil characters. I like systems that have some form of corruption, and Benefactor and I here, we're both Star Wars guys. We like Star Wars, and everyone knows Star Wars has the dark side of the Force, which is corruption and terrible things, absolutely terrible things. But I'm also a amateur fan of Warhammer, which Warhammer has chaos corruption. I'm not that big into Dune, but as I've learned of Dune, I call it like spice corruption, but I don't think that's technically correct. It's more like a spice epiphany. Like the more spice you have in Dune, the more you realize your role in the galaxy. DC Comics has emotional corruption, soul corruption. These are things that lead your character down the path of darkness and evil. It can sabotage your character and their power strength or power level. Such as with the Green Lanterns, if they become fearful, it can impact the strength of their ring. It can actually make their ring not work at all if their willpower is put into any form of doubt. And then Lord of the Rings is the last example that I've written down here, which I don't quite know the nuance to Lord of the Rings level of corruption. It seems to stem from like greed as a form of corruption, but I also think there's like genuine evil that creates that corruption. Lady Potato, you could probably elaborate on that a little bit deeper.
It's
If you
it's a
want.
bit of both. Um, Honestly, the true origins of corruption, like there is lore which is very deep, and I'm not going to get into it, but how it actually presents itself in the world is left a little bit nuanced. Generally, in the story, it's usually through like greed or objects that have evil um resonances. That's generally it, but yeah, um, they do leave it kind of nuanced.
Okay. So that is something, these corruption, these forms of corruption, um, are things I often pay attention to whenever someone wants to play an evil character in my campaigns. I will typically let them know you're walking a fine line if there are these corruption mechanics. As I told Benefactor here with my Star Wars game, he wanted to play a dark Jedi or a dark side user, and I had to tell him, like, in this system, the dark side it's designed to bend you over and fuck you, because the dark side in Star Wars is just that. It's not this video game idea of, oh, it's balance. It's good versus evil and there's a balance in the middle. It's a gray. Star Wars isn't like that. It's the light side is balanced by itself. The dark side is imbalance. And I know it's not a lot of people don't like that concept. They think, no, that you need yin and yang, and Star Wars isn't like that. But when I talk about evil characters, when I look at evil characters, um, part of why I like Darth Vader is the fact that Darth Vader is an evil character. He is corrupted, but there's a little bit of good in him that he's able to come back from that corruption. He's able to undo that corruption. And you guys saw in my End Times campaign, I did the same thing with Dawn, where she is able to go, she is able to drift and float between good and evil. Timaeus is another one. He's able to drift between good and evil. And you're balancing out, what good and evil you're doing and what the outcome is that you're steering towards. I don't like doing dramatic shifts in alignment. Okay. You have to do something extreme in order to have that dramatic shift. Murder is one of those extremes. Theft, in my opinion, is not that extreme. It's teetering, but it's not extreme. Any thoughts on that, on corruption for evil characters?
I mean, corruption is one way of putting it, but another way of putting it to be more broad is just outside influence. Because
Yeah.
that's essentially what corruption is. It's outside influence, which could be summarized as, maybe this person's being coerced. Maybe they're working for this guy because, their sister's imprisoned. There's that's what corruption could be easily described as well.
Well, is there anything you want to say on that, Benefactor, before I say my next thing?
Not really too much. Like I said, Lady Potato already kind of said it. I prefer, instead of calling it corruption, you could have that as maybe what the person does it set and tell her as, but it's more being like influence, manipulation, things like that. In general. So I don't really disagree there. So there's not really much I can say on that. Except, that I like that kind of that goes a little bit into the thing I talked about a bit when we was talking about when I mentioned like 3 character arcs and things like that and changes, you know, for the character. And some characters are fine with that. Some characters don't really mind becoming more and more corrupted as the time goes on, especially if they gain a benefit from it. That's kind of one of the big things is players and generally want to get a little annoying time, but players generally want benefits and out of everything they do. They're not really big on the merits, even if the merit came from their own actions per se, from choices. Again, you made that kind of point with me with to my where I made a choice and then I kind of like lost my I lost true sight and gained like magical sight. I lost my actual vision and gained magical sight and was suffering through enormous pain, and from a form of corruption from my own person I decided to choose to be my deity. But there was benefits from it. It wasn't like a super positive benefit, but it was something that my character did want. Where it's like even in death, I will kill and murder, evildoers. I would, those that hurt innocent people.
Yeah, your character didn't quite. I don't think your character put it as evil, but he looked at it as injustice.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there's ways you can also play with that kind of corruption with evil characters as well. Like I said, it just depends on what their wants and desires grow to be. So get trade off, but that was it really.
All right. So then the other question that I really wanted to ask as one of the starting questions, but we had some pretty good, interesting openings here. But so I'm going to ask. Maybe this is a good closing question. I don't know. I'll ask this to Lady Potato first. Do you think evil characters are inherently broken people?
That's a really, really hard question to ask. The way that they're usually portrayed would say yes. However, that can also be just based on what sort of circumstances have led them down to, view their scope, such as Timaeus. Timaeus has had some traumatic things in the past, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's a broken person. Like he isn't someone who, okay, I hear you laughing. You're just like, okay, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But, hmm. Okay, actually, first, let me ask you this: what do you mean by broken?
There's something in them that's not working correctly. That's what I mean.
Okay, something in them that's not working correctly.
Yeah,
I'm
so
gonna say that.
you could say that they're fully sound in mind of body. All right, on a normal day, they can make a full assessment of a situation, be 100% accurate. But the next day, the same circumstance, and they get one thing wrong. Okay, and then you find a pattern that every 2 days they get one thing wrong, and it's usually the same thing.
Right.
That to me would be describing of a broken person. There's
Yeah.
something that occasionally, but with some level of frequency, goes wrong, even though it shouldn't.
I'm gonna say no. I don't think that evil people are inherently broken, and I don't think any person of any alignment is inherently broken. I think that ultimately what defines alignment is decisions and course of action. That's really what defines any person's alignment and beliefs. First, you start with your beliefs, and those beliefs trickle down into your actions and how you're perceived and how you perceive yourself as well. And that to me is what really makes an evil person an evil person. It has nothing to do with people who are broken. There are plenty of heroes who may even be considered broken, but that's not synonymous with being evil.
Yeah. Well, that's a part of why I want to ask that question and see if there's that distinction, because I don't think most people would consider good characters not broken. They usually are broken and they're seeking some level of purification or fix or correction to their life or their circumstance. But what about you, Benefactor?
Oh yeah. So for me, how my answer is I agree with Late Potato. Is that any like good character or evil characters both can be broken? I believe, but for me, this is to be a little controversial. Me, I believe for the most part, most evil characters, besides those that are evil for evil's sake or comically evil, or how some people like to put Saturday morning villain types, are not. They're just I don't. They're written to be that way just because we need someone that's does bad things. But I think majority you will find that evil characters are in essence broken in one way, shape, or form. Is that shape them to be like this. You know what I mean? Again, like you said, it is the same thing for a good character and how they end up in the way they are. But I think majority of evil good evil. That's what I'm saying, like good, not good as in like
And
good
now it's a
morality, but anybody that
contradiction.
make a good evil character would be broken in some way, shape, or form that turned them into this evil character. Uh, so I believe majority of evil characters tend to be in a way or broken in some way, shape, or form. And I guess the best example that you would probably love would be Batman's villains, his role gallery. In general, are mostly people in some way, shape, or form, similar to Batman himself, that has been broken in some way, some shape or form, that has changed and altered their whole life course and define how like the way they act and do. It was the same thing with Spider-Man. It's the reason why people just like Batman's role gallery. Everybody remembers Spider-Man's role gallery. They're very much human, and a lot of them are broken from something that happened that made them become this way.
Okay. Okay. Well, my answer for it would be I do believe they're inherently broken. I'm sure that surprises literally no one. Um, I look at it as people generally look to be not as intrusive on other people, uh, and they look to just be self-serving and left to their own devices. And I see that the evil characters or evil people, they tend to break that mold. They tend to say, okay, how can I be intrusive to someone else? How can I influence someone else? How can I do some form of impact to someone else? And I see that as their outlook, their perspective on life is very jaded, and you know that's like you don't hear of the happy-go-lucky villain. You know, I mean, I don't know of any happy-go-lucky villains that are like, oh, I mean, actually, now I'm saying that I'm thinking of the Creeper, and I'm thinking of Mr. Spicklick, uh, maybe Bizarro Superman. But happy-go-lucky villains don't really exist in my book, as far as I can think. Where you do have happy-go-lucky heroes or happy-go-lucky neutral people. These are people that are just like, yeah, I want to make other people smile and be happy. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I'll save for the antagonist talk. So I want to make a comment, but I will definitely say that for the antagonist talk. We're gonna go into a whole different kind of like thing one there. And so I just want to point this out here to Lay Potato, just because she said she heard me laugh, which I was a little sad. I was like, crap, I didn't think that would key off. It was hard to really notice it unless you really just went into a character deep dive. To mine was definitely broken inside. There was definitely something wrong with him, even though he came off very sane and logical. His reasoning for his morality, in a sense, his lawful evil side, and his things didn't come into play because we was killing bad guys all the time. You know what I mean? You never got us. There was one time that we were in a regular civilized town and everything, where you would have saw just how vehemently he would have went to kill someone that was a criminal. Someone else killed the person, so you kind of missed the point where he was literally just gonna go and just slice a dude's heads off, just straight right out the gate, because another
Okay.
player got interfered. But it didn't really get to show much unless you really did a deep dive on him being broken, because again, it's not like we ran into petty bread thieves and things like that. We was facing pretty much like very evil people or corrupted creatures, so you never got to see it. But if you hear how he talks, and really, like I said, this would take much more because he was broken inside. Like the loss of his childhood best friend was a very big like thing inside him, and if we went into the full backstory of why he even became the Flickering Step and became one of the top people where he now runs the justice system for the Elven Empire, because we never got there for that big exposition. You would have found like he only did this because she got killed and then the criminal was able to live out his days. He was a very broken person inside. He was always sad that he couldn't save her and things that happened. Which is why he always tried to make it his goal to get revenge for the innocents, because he never wanted, and he told this to Dawn, he didn't want people to end up like him, who lives every day with this guilt and burden and sadness of loss and the burning desire of revenge, where you're now going off and killing all criminals. And that was one of the big things he had talked to Dawn about, which is like, I don't want you to end up like me. That's one of my whole purposes in life, is innocent people.
That's a part of why he took a more active role in engaging with her, because he saw her going down that road.
So, but he very much was broken inside.
We all were.
We have Niraj in the chat again. The greater corruption in Dune is the way that the awakened can lose their minds in the process of awakening. The rest is corruption of the politics of power and control. That's true. And Bizarro is an example of a broken villain because of the physical defect of being warped. That's true. When I was talking about this the other day about Bizarro, when he was first created, he was a perfect clone of Superman. And he had the charm, the smile, and everything, until he began to break down and he began to act weird. And he's effectively, the moral of the story of Bizarro, the terrifying thing of Bizarro, is that he is a child with the power of Superman. And so, he is definitely a broken villain. He's a perfect example of a broken villain, because he's basically a child with the power of God at his fingertips. But I think we're ready to wrap up.
Yep.
I'm going to make one quick small announcement. I have on Rumble, I've uploaded our previous, I think our first 3 episodes are on Rumble now. Same YouTube or same channel name, just Crusader Jackaran on Rumble, and you can view those. I have another video or 2 videos over there. Feel free to look them up. Benefactor, do you want to plug your wares?
Of course, you can always find your friendly neighborhood Benefactor at twitch.com/ChaosRyzen or as YouTube/ChaosRyzen, but there'll be a link in the description so you can find that one on YouTube a lot easier. I will be starting to stream one of the games I'm a player in very soon from the Starfinder campaign system. I hope you guys look forward to that.
Awesome. And Lady Potato, anything you want to say in closing?
As of now, I am still a ghost, but I do want to just lightly hint that we got some things in the works for our channel here. So grab your popcorn, pay attention, and hopefully we'll be having some fun shortly.
And next week, we're going to be talking about antagonists. So I appreciate you guys sticking out in chat, those of you who watched us in the future. And you guys have a good night. And thank you to my co-stars here, Benefactor and Lady Potato. You guys are great.